Good evening and welcome to the May 18th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. Before we get started, two things. If you have a cell phone or other electronic device, if you could silence it or turn it off, greatly appreciated. If you are here to speak on any of the applications, and we encourage you to do so, we only ask that you take the podium, give us your name for the records keeper, and also speak into the microphone. We're being recorded by FCTV, so if you move from the podium to a plan or something like that, take the mic with you. Okay, first up is minutes from the March 16th meeting. March 16th.
We discussed those last week and
Oh, sorry, I might not have,
Okay, so we did.
were they voted?
Were they voted?
We put off the votes because I thought that the record was gonna be checked.
hey, why is that?
We were,
Was that the one we were doing, or was it?
Yeah, but you didn't give me anything to know where to check it, so,
Oh, what are we doing?
March 16th.
So are we leaving it on, we taking it off? Don't know.
We didn't give Susan enough information.
Oh,
All
okay.
right, so we'll just table that one. March 30th, and this is the 4 p.m. one. And that would have been
what is Steve? No, it
Steve.
was us and
Yeah,
who? Courtney, yes.
Yeah. Are there any corrections or additions you'd like?
I haven't seen those minutes.
do you have them, Mr. Chairman? Those we might not have gotten
Yeah,
yet.
right here, 4:30.
I
Okay.
got them.
March 30th.
Well, especially because I wasn't at the meeting.
Want to table those?
Yeah, let's table those two.
Here it is, you two could share that.
Well,
I'm worried.
I guess
All
it
right.
must be in my.
How about the April 13th meeting? Anybody on April 13th?
Let's see.
I didn't get those.
All right, so it sounds like we're gonna table the case to the 13th, because I'm not getting any response
Jen, could we have these minutes emailed to us,
Yes,
please?
again.
yep.
And routinely.
I read them, but,
April 13th, Mark?
yes, I did. Yes, on page 3,
Please, please.
I just had one correction on page 3. I made a statement, yes, and it was actually not sure. I'll give these to Susan.
Page
And
3.
then page 3. I think that was all that I saw in that one. Yep,
Okay, so you wanna make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept them as written.
Okay, we got a motion by Maureen, a second by Jamie, to accept as written, with minor changes. Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. April 27th.
April 27. Is this the one they tabled?
Anyone got anything on that? No? Sounds like
I
another
didn't-
table.
Yeah, I didn't finish that one, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So April 27th is, and we'll vote all four of them at one time, I guess. May 11th?
Chairman, I've read them and find them acceptable.
I didn't hear what you said.
I've read them and I find them acceptable.
Yeah, I concur.
Good. May 11th. So we have a motion, Mike?
I have a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Second.
Second by Mary.
Then May 11th?
May
May
11th.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. So we're gonna, somebody give me a motion to table March 16th, March 30th, at 4 p.m., and April 27th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Betsy, second by Maureen, to table those three. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved. Okay, request for determination of applicability. First up is Margaret Remsen, 77 Old Dock Road, West Falmouth, Mass. For permission to pump, fill, and abandon the existing cesspools and to install a new Title V sewage disposal system with a stone retaining wall around a portion of the leach field and to install a black water holding tank and the associated excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jeff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we were recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion by Courtney and a second by Mike. Any other comments, questions from the board? Comments, questions from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
One recused.
Well, you're one recusal.
Who recused?
I did.
Maureen. Okay. Request for a continued hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. And first up, we have Sean and Lillian Wolf of 71 Minor Street, Falmouth, Mass. This has already been read into the record. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can we table this? The applicant's representative is not here yet.
So moved.
Second.
What are we doing?
Tabling it. The representative.
Okay. All those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstentions? Okay, so moved. So we'll move on to Perch Pond Preservation, Inc., Perch Pond Navigation Channel and nearby beaches, East Falmouth, Mass. It's already been read into the record, so let's go. Mike is going to recuse himself.
Everybody but Mike.
Oh, okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, members of the commission. I'm Brad Holmes, professional wetland scientist with Environmental Consulting and Restoration. Along with me this evening is the Perch Pond Preservation, Inc., Mike Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and attorney Brian Wall. We're here for our continued hearing on the Perch Pond navigation dredging and beach nourishment project. I know that we've been in front of the commission 2 or 3 times. At the last meeting, if you remember, Don Anderson presented his findings on the Alexandrian cyst survey. As if you remember, his findings were that the cyst was not present in the dredge footprint. That was a concern from Division of Marine Fisheries. He also talked about some of the benefits of the project as far as enhancement to the ecosystem with flushing benefits. After that discussion, we continued the hearing for mainly 2 issues. The 2 issues were the beach nourishment component and dredge methodology, and also shellfish survey and shellfish concerns. Since that time, we've done some additional work. We've met with the town Natural Resources Department, and I've also submitted a additional information letter May 10th that I assume that you've been able to review and analyze. So at that effort, I'll go over those points which pertain to the additional items that we left for discussion. The dredge methodology, as I included, I won't go over every point unless you would like to further discuss it in the narrative here, is that they'll be done with either a hydraulic or mechanical dredge using best available measures. The beach nourishment component, as we originally proposed along the nearby beaches, has been removed from the proposal. The current option now is that the dredge sand, which we know is all very good, good 98.6% beach nourishment capable sand, will be used at permitted beach nourishment sites or brought to an upland location and used outside of conservation areas as fill. Our hope is to use it at a permitted location beneficial to the town of Falmouth for beach nourishment. Another aspect that we left for discussion with you was what are the constraints of shellfish within the area and to perform a shellfish survey. Originally, The concern was for soft-shell clam habitat within the intertidal area near the proposed beach nourishment sites. That, as I just discussed, beach nourishment has been removed from that proposal, so that issue is now resolved. The next piece of that was the shellfish habitat within the dredge footprint. I met with the Natural Resources Department, and we did actually 2 shellfish investigations in there. The Natural Resources Department did a great job. They prepared a very thorough report that's been submitted to the town. We don't have any objection to that. Their methodology was sound. Their findings are accurate. There is shellfish in the dredge footprint consisting mainly of soft-shell clam. It's more along the lines of seed and juvenile animals within the dredge footprint. And that has been thoroughly documented in the report. One of the aspects that goes along with shellfish are what are the impacts that you would have associated with the shellfish and the shellfish habitat. As we know, the area leading in and into Perch Pond is currently prohibited from shellfishing due to quality concerns, and it's been shut off by the state for harvesting. It's our position that the result of past dredging and maintenance events has allowed the Perch Pond to be more of a nursery to produce seed that also supports the Great Pond area. There was findings that I included with my report and a letter from the past shellfish constable, Paul Montague, that mirrored those needs as far as the benefits of dredging to maintain the importance of the pond and also the temporary impacts to shellfish habitat within that area. As done in the past, and we anticipate it to occur after this anticipated dredge project, is that the Perch Pond, once dredged, the tidal flushing will be increased to a degree that that area is opened up for shellfishing, which was what was allowed in the past. There are some other additional information that is also beneficial to the Commission, and Attorney Wall would like to present that to the Commission as well.
Good evening. Through the chair, my name is Brian Wall. I'm an attorney with an office in Sandwich, and I represent the Perch Pond Preservation Incorporated. The reason that I decided to speak tonight is to point out to the Commission, first of all, that this project is being proposed for 2 very important reasons that are equally important to the applicant. The first is to improve the flushing of Perch Pond and to thereby prevent the pond from becoming anaerobic and odorous when those circumstances occur. Secondly is the obvious reason to improve recreational boating. These 2 purposes implicate 2 interests under your act and that are defined in your regulations that don't typically come up in your applications. And those interests are aesthetics and recreation. And the Commission, in its definitions, has defined these 2 terms. I'm going to paraphrase aesthetics. Aesthetics means the protection of the natural and native scenic impressions of the shores, ponds, lakes, streams, rivers, and the lands bordering them. Recreation means the use and enjoyment of our natural surroundings in a manner consistent with their preservation. The definition goes on to specify certain activities that are considered by the Commission to be recreational, and one of them is recreational boating. And so it is our position that the proposed project, by dredging and increasing the flushing of Perch Pond, will actually enhance the interest of aesthetics, because if the pond is allowed to be choked off by the shoaling of the channel, it will become anaerobic and it will become odorous. And there's many examples of this type of thing happening on the Cape. So that was if we do nothing, if this project is denied, the interest of aesthetics will actually be significantly and adversely affected, whereas if the project is approved, the interest will be actually enhanced. The same goes for recreational boating. It's an interest protected by your act. If the channel is allowed to shoal up the way that it is, recreational boating will be adversely affected. By dredging the channel, kind of stating the obvious, the channel will be deeper, it'll be easier to pass, and actually your definition specifically defines navigation as the ability to traverse a waterway, and it is part of a resource area value recreation under the bylaw. So you actually protect navigation, the ability to traverse waterways. This proposed project will enhance that interest. I also would like to point the commission to the definition of recreation. There's a particular sentence that we think is important to this project, and that is the commission has decided to give priority to recreational boating. In the regulations at the definitions section, it says, analysis of the project's effect on the resource area value of recreation should be given priority to enhancing and protecting those recreational activities which are not detrimental to the continued function of wetlands. And so thus, when the commission decided to define the term recreation that town meeting put in the bylaw, the commission decided to give priority to recreational boating. And we would ask that you consider that when you make your decision. Finally, the third aspect of this particular project that's a little bit different than usual is the standard, the performance standard that's applicable. Under land under the ocean, improvement dredging for navigational purposes is given the performance standard of best available measures to reduce adverse or minimize adverse impacts. So normally when you're reviewing the garden variety project of a house or a building, some sort of activity near a wetland, the commission is concerned either with the no adverse effect standard or the no substantially adverse effect standard. That is not the standard for this project. It is best available measures, and we would submit to you that the project uses best available measures and therefore meets the performance standard, and as I said, actually enhances two of your interests. So we would ask that you approve the project. Mr. Berselli's here for questions. I'm here for questions, and Mr. Holmes is here for questions. I know that some of the members of the Perch Pond Association want to say something about this, so at the discretion of the chair, you can do it as part of the application or part of public comment.
I'll make a public comment.
Okay, thank you.
So you're all set for now, Brian?
Yes.
Okay, Brad, you're all set? Okay. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and also the Shellfish Constable's here as well, and the
Oh,
board
yes.
should hear from him.
Oh, okay, I understand.
Quick question to Brad, Mike, or Brian, sorry, we haven't seen you in a while. Have you identified, you said you are going to put the beach nourishment spoils at a already approved beach. Has that beach been identified?
No, it has not. So there are two alternative proposals that we're recommending be a condition of the permit. One would be that the spoils be taken away at the boat landing and trucked away. Well, actually, that's part of both of them. It's going to be trucked to a beach that is already permitted for depositing spoils, or it will be trucked to an upland location and disposed of. So
Good,
I
okay.
think if Mr. Berselli can speak to this.
Well, usually, in a plan, and Mr. Borselli is aware of this, we usually have that beach identified, or the material is stored at an upland location and used at the town's discretion. So is the town going to truck the spoils to this location, or is Perch Pond Preservation going to truck the spoils to this location?
I don't think that has been worked out yet, but the idea of the
Okay.
permit, the idea of the permit would be that as far as the conservation is concerned with the proposal before it, the spoils will be adequately taken care of by either trucking away to an upland landfill or
Okay.
to an already approved
Beach
deposition
location?
site.
Okay.
Right.
Because there have been a lot of emails that have been entered into the record by concerned citizens regarding the quality of the material, not so much the grain size analysis, but any sort of debris, shells, glass, things like that, that's in the material, that was in the material the time it was dredged, like 16 years ago. So I want to make sure that it's not just placed on a beach without the town's
Oh, absolutely.
consent or anything
No,
like that? or-
Absolutely not,
Okay.
Jennifer, no, absolutely
That's what I
not.
was getting at.
Right, and the idea being is that the town has a 10-year dredge and beach nourishment.
Yes.
Comprehensive permit.
So it has to be compatible sand,
Exactly.
go on a beach at a certain time of year,
Right.
depending on what beach you're putting it on.
And you're making my point, which is
Okay.
that the permits that deal with the depositing of the spoils have those conditions already in place, so that if this material is not suitable, it wouldn't be permitted. But
Okay.
I'd like Mr. Borselli, because he has some more information to add to this particular topic.
Hi, for the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering. I don't have a lot to add, other than to let you know that I've had conversations with Don Hoffer, Beach Superintendent for the town of Falmouth, and they're always interested in available sand for beach nourishment that is compatible in grain size and quality. They have a process where they try to, if it's possible, and it has been possible in the past, to work cooperatively with private people to get the material to a beach. If the project's approved and that were the option, we'd certainly work with your staff in conjunction with the beach committee to describe to you what beach it would go to. It's likely that it would be staged in a parking lot, for instance, at possible beaches at Bristol, Minot Beach, or possibly the Heights Beach. But the material would certainly has been tested and sampled, and it's compatible by Army Corps standards, DEP standards, as material for nourishing beaches. Of course, we would have to compare the specific grain size compatibility for the beaches that we might want to utilize. If we discovered for whatever reason it wasn't needed at the time we were going to be wanting to dispose of it, or it wasn't compatible for some reason, then our option would be to truck it to a landfill or some location outside your jurisdiction. But we were optimistic, based on the conversations we had, that we might be able to act cooperatively with the beach committee, and the beach, the dredge material would serve a purpose other than just a landfill.
Anything else, Jen?
A few things. To Mr. Holmes, I don't know where he went. Sure. Oh, there you are, Brian. How are you? Correct me if I'm wrong, Margaret, the last time you were here, did you say that you had looked at shrinking the dredge footprint?
We have looked at the possibility of that. But we haven't done
Okay, has that
anything.
been done?
No, it hasn't.
No, okay.
It hasn't been presented.
Okay. And to Brian, when you were
Is there
stating...
anything else you need from
No,
me?
no, not from you,
Okay,
Brian.
great.
I just, because I thought about it, and I wasn't seeing a revision date on your plan, and I didn't have a revision date in the files or for the commission, and I could have sworn at the last hearing you said after consultation with Chuck, you were looking to reduce it, so I wasn't sure if
It would have maybe
we...
been at the site walk, it wasn't definitely not at a public meeting.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
it was. I had
Yeah.
that question for you, too.
Yeah, I think you stated it at the public meeting that you were shrinking the footprint.
Then I stand correct?
I can speak to that. We did talk about it, we've looked at it, but in our analysis, we're sort of, we're in a dilemma. We're not sure that it would be beneficial to reduce the channel because of the reasons we're trying to improve flushing. Reducing the channel some small amount would also just result in a smaller generation of beach nourishment material. And I think that the reason you were asking us to look at it was because we were contemplating placing it on nearby beaches. Well, one of the reasons. So now we're not doing that. So there's a possibility that reducing the channel width is going to reduce the efficiency to flush. So we're not convinced right now. I mean, maybe if we get some feedback, we can reconsider it, but we'd like some feedback. We're not convinced that reducing the channel would result in any significant benefit to the interest. So, we're still looking at it. We'd like to hear from you about it. And we would consider it, but we are having trouble really supporting that because of the flushing efficiency.
Okay. Just a comment to Brian, when you talked about recreational aspects and the definition of recreation, you were quick and repeatedly said recreational boating, but if you read further into the definition of recreation, it also includes shellfishing, which brings me to my shellfish point. The town did a shellfish survey. You all received a copy of it. It was astounding, the amount of shellfish that was, and seed that was found within the dredging footprints. Mr. Martinson, the Assistant Director of Marine and Environmental Services, is here to speak to that. And that said, we do realize that you were put in the letter from the former shellfish constable from 2000 regarding the dredging. We received an email from him at 12:40 this afternoon, and I will read it for the record. I understand that my comments that I made some 15 years ago or so are being used to support the redredging of Perch Pond. I initially did support the dredging in concert with road runoff projects in an effort to get water quality of the pond to a point of opening it to shellfishing. It was a trade-off of excavating through a clam bed to try to later make use of the resource. DMF water testing, after all this work, will show that the area was unable to meet the requirements to open for shellfishing. In addition, the area where the spoils were put did not stabilize well and caused sedimentation problems in Great Pond. Currently, I understand that the mouth of Perch Pond supports a very dense population of clams. I now believe that this population of clams is a valuable brood stock for Great Pond, and if left alone, will serve to repopulate the areas of Great Pond that are seasonally open to shellfishing. The best hope for improving water quality in Perch Pond would be to sewer all of the surrounding homes and divert road drainage from Route 28. Paul S. Montague, former shellfish constable. We did reach out to Paul because you were using a letter he wrote to Army Corps back in 2000, and since that time, Paul had some pretty strong feelings about dredging. So the town did reach out to him, and we, like I said, received that this afternoon.
If I may, before you go on, Jen, obviously we're at a disadvantage since we did not have notice of that email. And I'm not a scientist, so I'm going to turn it over to Brad, but it sounded to me that the email of today saying that the gentleman had regrets about the letter before had a lot to do with the beach nourishment part and now how that did not work out as hoped in the past.
I'll let Chuck Martinson speak more to that,
Well,
since
that's why
he
we
worked
took
with
that
Paul.
part of it off the table, was we saw that that was a building issue, and so we decided to take that and solve the problem a different way.
And that's good, because that was a big problem with, or big issue with this project. Staff does have concerns regarding the population and the density of seed and soft shell in the dredge footprint. That is a really big concern to your staff. That said, the board will have to determine how you want to balance those different aspects, those recreational competing interests. That said, Mr. Chairman, I think it would be wise to hear from Mr. Martinson, so you can get a review of the shellfish survey that was conducted, since we've been kind of waiting for a shellfish survey. The town usually does not do a shellfish survey for the applicant. This was done by MES to get an idea of what was out there.
Yeah. Well, I know that was brought up, we saw it in the minutes. I mean, it was other questions about where were we with the survey? And I don't think we ever got a response on that.
No, we did not.
I can add some information to that. On dredge projects, there are very rarely surveys done. I think that the survey that was done by the town was excellent. As I said before, I was there. It's accurate, it's very intense. For instance, the town's 10-year comprehensive dredge survey, I spoke with their consultants, there was never any shellfish surveys done. So this is somewhat new, I think, in in surveys for dredge projects, and the findings were excellent. My intent of using the past shellfish surveys, a letter, was somewhat that it kind of mirrors the situation that we're going to be in. At the time, in 2000, it hadn't been dredged for, say, 10 years or so, and it needed to be done. The support was that in that time, there was going to be a temporary impact of the shellfish in the dredge footprint, but the overall benefits outweighed that. And now, here we are, say, a little bit more than 10 years or so past that last dredging. We're kind of coming up on the same effect, is that the benefit outweighs the temporary impacts. So let's think of it as, well, let's not dredge it, let's let it close off. Do you think that the area is going to be the nursery that it is now without the flushing, and it's going to be productive? I don't think it will be. I think it will turn stagnant, it will turn anaerobic, we'll have degraded conditions, and you have a potential to actually lose that resource area. I think that there's a cyclical time, and I think that past report helps to reinforce the need for that. I think as I said before, the shellfish survey indicates that.
What did you consider a short period of time?
Well, the seed that's in there now it's seed and juvenile clams. You'll see that there weren't larger harvestable clams in that area. The area is not open to shellfishing anyway, but it's not something that is harvestable. Again, we only sampled within that channel. The water rushes in and out very quickly over that area. There wasn't investigations done further into the pond. There could be larger, there's likely larger soft shells that are existing in there that might be, available. But as far as a temporary time frame, I don't have an answer for you, but we know that it was last done about 16 years or so ago, and we have, juveniles that are in very high populations. So we're talking about a small area over a very large area and a very large potential benefit.
Yeah, you said Chuck was here? You have no
Yes, it is,
objections?
and
I'd like to hear Chuck
the board also
before we
should,
leave this.
look at their section FWR 10.34, land containing shellfish. It's informative.
Chuck,
Chuck's right.
there he is.
Hi, good evening. My name is Chuck Martinson. I'm the Deputy Director of Marine Environment and Shellfish Constable as well. Thank you for having me this evening. Mr. Montague did a pretty good job, I believe, in his email explaining what led us up to the point of dredging the area initially. Initially, it was to hopefully improve water quality to the point at which shellfishing could be opened in there. We only achieved that in a small portion of the pond for a matter of months, and then it was closed down. There's a few things here that I want to bring up. The first of which is that before it was initially dredged, there were not nearly as many docks in there. The need wasn't there. After it was initially dredged, there were a significant amount of docks which were actually permitted and put in there. So the need certainly increased once that initial dredging, once the last dredging took place. We saw a bump in permitting up in there. So the need is not something that's existed for a very long time. It's only existed for the last, say, 10 or 15 years. What has existed for a long time is resource area, or the need for resource area for soft-shell clams. Our soft-shell clam beds, our fish catches, all of our numbers have been down for years, and part of that has to do with spawning sanctuaries, spawning areas. This area, frankly, is probably one of the, I would say in my, since I've been doing this, and I've been working for the town for 23 years in different capacities, but I've never seen this many shellfish in one area. There was one survey block that was done, and it was 1 meter squared. It was 3 feet by 3 feet, and there were over 1,400 animals in that one piece. In fact, there were so many that they were getting squeezed out of there, which for a number of reasons on its own brings up a few issues. Certainly beach nourishment is going to be problematic because the majority of that likely won't be sand. There's as much equal shell in there as there is sand, first of all. Second of all, there's really an issue with mitigating that. It's almost impossible to mitigate that. You just can't mitigate that many animals. It's tremendous how many animals are in there. The value of that area as a spawning sanctuary is critical, and we've seen that in areas just to the south of there. We have areas that are open to shell fishing. There is both a commercial and a recreational area just to the south of there and outside of there that has held soft shell clams throughout the winter. So they have been available to that for that purpose. I think something else that's worth discussing here is this balance between the navigation piece and the livelihood of a lot of these commercial fishermen and the way of life for a lot of people. It's really one of the only places that you can get softshell clams left in the town. There's tremendous cultural value to having that in our community, and I don't think it should be understated. I would like to certainly thank the applicants, the proponents, for joining us in the shellfish survey. It was nice to be able to do that alongside both them and one of our commercial fishermen as well. It was a great practice and all, going out there and looking at the resource. It was something that we extended as a department because we did see a value in the area. We have done surveys in other areas, other dredging areas, primarily for the town in the past, so it's not something that's totally new but somewhat rare. That's all I had at this point. I don't know if there's any questions that the Commissioner.
You'll stay around for questions, though?
Sure.
The survey was only done within the proposed dredging area, correct?
There were 3 areas that were done.
But all in that channel?
There was one on the outside, one in the middle, and then one further in.
Do we know what's in the outer part of the channel and Perch Pond itself?
Well, the western shore along there is certainly has very high levels of softshell clams. We saw that as a group when we walked out there. We initially did a site visit with both the applicants, with Jen, with the Division of Marine Fisheries, and when we walked out there, we were observing softshell clams, holes, that whole way out on that shoreline. So it exists all through this piece here, and to a large part extends, further down beyond the ramp.
So the shellfish survey, these 3 spots was 1 cubic meter in each of the
Yeah, there were a
spots?
few cubic sections, a few square meters that were pulled out of each section.
Okay. And high densities and,
There were, it wasn't as high as 1,400. There were some, just going off the top of my head, I think there was one with 600 or 700 in it. There was another one that they did have densities, yeah.
what?
More than just.
More than 9.
Exceeding 9 per
Exceeding 9.
square foot?
Yes.
And more than a multiple of it.
Do you want the
Oh,
totals?
much larger than multiple.
Do you want me to try to find the totals of the soft shell?
Well, we don't need it now.
Okay.
And Chuck will be available for questions. Anything
Yeah,
else from anybody
I
right now?
had a quick question, Chuck. You made a comment about shellfish mitigation is almost impossible.
Right.
And also the habitat itself would be gone, am I
Yeah.
correct? So
Yeah.
even if you mitigated somewhere, that area would no longer sustain the soft
Right.
shell clam?
So that's a great question, and maybe we'll just talk about that piece a little bit more. The cycle that kind of went on over there, and I realize they've removed the piece of taking the sand and putting it on the western shore, but for the purposes of the soft shell clams, I guess, there could be an up spot and a down spot to that. What happens is the dredge comes in, everything's removed, there's a ton of shell debris that's in there. You can see that shell debris just if you walk out there from where it was placed up on the shore from before. That shell debris is still falling out of that hillside. Essentially what happens is that over time, it erodes off that shoreline, sets back up in that channel. That material that's there, the shellfish will start to set up in it, and as time goes on, we have a few years that don't have that much rain, not some extremely hot temperatures. We start to get really good spawns going on in there. And right by the time that we start to get that and things start to really click in there, then we're coming right back through again and dredging it. These systems are, all these systems are meant to open and close. They're not, it was called Perch Pond, and we're probably not going to find too many perch in there right now. But they come, they go, they open, they close. You see the same thing on the south side of the vineyard with many of the systems over there. They can survive in there even when it is closed off for a time period. So, using the argument that it will kill them if it's temporarily closed off, I don't foresee that happening at this point. There is overwash there on high, would be overwash there anyways on high tides. So.
I know up in Maine, they've been having a real problem with, any kind of mitigation for soft shell plants.
Yeah, and so the mitigation
They've tried,
piece comes
and
to
it
this,
doesn't
is
work.
that when you go to plant them, you need to put, it's very labor intensive, you have to hand plant them, you have
And
to
the
put
predation.
screens over them for predation. You have to clean the screens off so that, the fouling of them can
And it's still
control
not
some.
very successful.
Yeah,
from what I
and
understand.
so the other thing that's going on is, you might have seen this in Green Pond, we've got a whole kind of green crab trapping thing, so you're excavating this bottom to put these in, and you're fighting with the green crabs and everything else, so,
Thank you.
sure.
Anything else for Chuck right now?
I have one question. You mentioned something about it only worked for a short period, the water quality, back when it was dredged.
Oh, correct, yes, yep, sure. Yeah, it was, well, the water quality standard that we're using, the standard that we're using here, that we're talking about tonight is fecal coliform levels to be acceptable, to be open for shellfishing. That's the standard we're using. So that standard, it did not reach. If that's kind of the standard that we're going with, it did not.
But the animals were fine, it's just we.
Oh, yeah, the animals were fine, yeah, just because you can't harvest them, we're getting spawns out of there. To a degree, it's kind of a blessing in disguise to have these areas that aren't open but have these high-valued animals in their spawn.
Courtney, you have something?
I know that there's been a lot of discussion about whether or not soft shells can be relocated, and it goes both ways. I've heard both sides of it. Depends. One argument that I've heard, and I believe it came from Jen, was that yes, they can. It's physically possible to relocate soft shell clams. It's extraordinarily labor intensive, which in turn translates into expensive. But it can be done.
Courtney, I think you're confusing the fact that I said that I was part of a program with the former shellfish constables physically planting them. And I did that, but I don't remember if we were relocating them from another area.
Yeah.
But I was physically
I
planting
remember
them
this-
in the
this-
water, yeah.
Yeah, there was a
I
discussion
made
of
little
this.
short horseshoes around myself, yeah. I
Yeah,
had the
and I was on the commission for quite a while, and this was probably 5 years ago, and we had a very similar discussion. And I think Betsy was on the commission then, and the subject of relocating them came up. And whoever it was, I believe it might have been Mike Borselli, was arguing that it was prohibitively expensive, it couldn't be done. And I think you cited an example at that point saying, well, I've done it, and you can do it, but it's labor intensive. And so by extension, that means money. So the question is that a viable possibility in this case? In other words, can the shellfish that are in the proposed dredge area, both soft shell and I don't know about cohogs, I'm not sure whether, can they be relocated, or can they be, obviously relocated outside of that area? Because to sacrifice that quantity of shellfish would be problematic. I wouldn't support this dredging if that wasn't a feasibility.
So it's something that I'm not going to say that it can't be done. I think we can all kind of go out and punch up some soft shell clams and move them, and some will live and some won't.
It's the seed.
You're dealing with seed first of all, and then second of all,
The habitat.
the monitoring piece is probably the toughest, because you have to monitor what you're moving, and you're also losing habitat there's habitat loss that's,
Right.
you know, I mean, that's the trade-off, so.
No, I mean, this proposal in front of us is,
Not to interrupt, but if you removed all the soft shell clams out of a 1 meter square, and there's 1,400 in there, you're already starting your dredging.
no, I
You might not have
I
much
hear
sand
you.
left.
And I guess what I'm really looking at is that this is one of those situations where, Attorney Wald, in his presentation, mentioned 2 or 3 of the resource area values that we consider, but there are other ones in here. And so the issue that we face as a commission is how to balance the priorities of these different resource area values as to what is more important. This is not a cut and dry situation because I certainly understand the concept of having a channel open up, increasing the water flow and improving the water quality. But at the same time, when you have the potential destruction of a huge habitat that's vital for other areas, another resource area value, it creates a real dilemma for us. That's all. That's my observation on this.
It's also the type of navigation. I mean, there is navigation in there with smaller vessels, it's just we're not able to get in, 20 foot, 25 footers. I mean, it's not like there's totally no navigation in there right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get smaller,
Like a lot of places in Falmouth.
kayaks, canoes, they can still go up there. I mean, there still is navigation. It's just that, you're not gonna be able to bring a 25 footer up there. I mean,
Anything else for Chuck? Anything else for right now? Okay. Dave Brown. Would you like to make a comment, Dave, before we move on here?
My name's Dave Brown. I've been a commercial fisherman in town for a little over 30 years. And I understand that, everybody wants to get their boat in and out of here, but as I said before about this resource, when you asked Russell about the short-term impact, the last time the short-term impact was about 10 years before we had soft shell clams in Great Pond again, after the last time they dredged it.
That's why I was having a problem.
Yeah, so it's not that short-term. And it's not just the 50 commercial fishermen who make a living here. We have, I think, over 1,500 recreational permits in town. And, this is going to affect all of them. This is one of the easiest places. Not everybody has a boat that can get into all the ponds. Great Pond, especially at this end. You can drive there and park on one of the side streets and walk in. And for the recreational people, that's a real important area. One of the other things I'd like to bring up is that for the commercial men, this is probably the most important resource aside from Walkway Bay. It gets the 30, 40 guys that are fishing through the winter. From November right till May when it closes, it's being fished. There'll be a half a dozen guys there daily, all winter long, more on some days, more in the beginning. It's so important that taking it away again is going to set us back. And it's not just the commercial guys. It affects the fish markets. It affects the restaurants, shellfish dealers. So it's not just us. And I can't put enough emphasis how important this one area is. And like Paul Montague said here, it was the biggest, he said it, he felt it was the biggest mistake he'd ever made in his time in Falmouth as a shellfish warden, was allowing Perch Pond to be dredged. So, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
anything else? Oh,
Sorry. A very brief comment, and I know Brad has a brief comment as well. I'd like to address something that Courtney said, because I agree with him, he's right. There are more than one performance standard. I focused on the one about improvement dredging, but I'd also like to focus on the one about land-containing shellfish, because there's been a lot of talk about harm to the specific shellfish at issue that are there right now. That's not the performance standard. The performance standard protects land containing shellfish, and I won't read the whole thing, but it basically says the following. Projects on land containing shellfish shall not adversely affect any portion of such land or marine fisheries by a change in the productivity of such land caused by, and then there are a number of bullet points, including alteration of water circulation, relief elevation, compacting sediment, etc. Our position is that there will be a temporary impact to the shellfish and the land containing shellfish. But long-term, all of these elements of the performance standard are actually going to be improved. And that's what our position is. I know that Brad has a...
Excuse me, Brian, where are you
I have
reading
a
that?
question for you, Brian.
Sure.
It's just sort of a procedural one, maybe, but you've twice tonight made reference to improvement dredging, but your written submission talks about maintenance dredging, so which is it?
I'm sorry, Mary, you're correct. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's maintenance dredging. The performance standards to which I'm referring are maintenance dredging. I misspoke, thank you.
Brown, when you were just quoting the bullet points, where were you looking?
It is FWR 10.34, 6, 10 point, FWR 10.34, 6, and subparts A through F, the performance standard for land.
All right, thank you.
shellfish.
Yep, thank you.
I'll be brief. I think I talked enough about shellfish. I think what we're hearing is the glass half full, in my opinion. What we're talking about is the glass half empty. We're focusing on the potential impacts that one area, as we said, would be temporary. Let's think about it. If we allowed the pond to shoal over and reduce the flushing, as we all know, you start to breed Phragmites. You have a degraded situation. We know that there are, as documented by Don Anderson, there are the potential for the cysts to incubate and further degrade the whole area without the increased tidal flushing. The whole, when we talk about resource areas, there are, this has it all. It's got all resource areas here. Shellfish are one of those resource areas, but the tidal flushing severely outweighs the benefits to all the resource areas being wetlands, salt marsh, the wildlife habitat value for waterfowl, other fisheries habitat. I could go on and on, but I just wanted to put that point across that it's not a doom and gloom. The perch pond preservation, as they state in their name, and I'm sure they'll get up to speak, is preservation. They're not here to degrade the environment. They're all combined together to improve the environment. So let's think of all the resource areas as a whole. Thank you.
Brad, before you, I'm big on compromise. I always have been. And I'm kind of curious. I know the staff had reached out to you guys. And I know there was discussion of maybe narrowing a little bit, but no, just consideration, and that's it.
There has been consideration. We have talked about it. I'll let the design engineer speak to it. That would be better for his.
We're in our fourth hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I think I spoke for the.
Yeah, you did. They're not sure they want to support it.
Right, I understand that, but I mean, again, you know. All right, now, the preservation, did somebody from there want to speak first before we come back to the questions and answers?
I'll ask Matt Sleeper to come up.
Actually, do you want to read your?
Peter Walsh. And Mr. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think that that last comment you made too about the staff reaching out and your obvious expression about the feeling, the way that Mr. Berselli ended on that was that we were looking for feedback because I think that we were in an honest dilemma. Part of the project is flushing and therefore it requires capacity and volume. We'd like to hear from the commission on that. And if the commission is of a consensus that the channel needs to be more narrow, then that is something that the client will consider.
Mr. Chairman, I think that was well stated at the second or third hearing, that this channel was too big.
Yeah, and because we did go over the minutes, and I was just kind of surprised that nothing else came in, not an alternative or some sort of conversation with staff.
We're on the fourth hearing for this.
Yes, yep.
And I apologize, I was not at the hearings before. I read the minutes. May I ask, is there a consensus amongst the members that
Mr.
we're
Chairman?
narrowing the channel?
No.
I'm not gonna do that right now.
We didn't get to that point, but it was certainly brought up.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, thank you.
so the preservation,
Continue
I make that statement, and then we can
I'm Peter
start our
Walsh.
questions and answers here. Go ahead.
I'm Peter Walsh of 115 Ticket Path, and I have a couple of comments from the people that live around Perch Pond. One family, Roger and Mary Ann Garcina, they submitted a letter to me to read for them. Since the dredging of 2000, there has been a great improvement for several years. The mussels have reappeared along the banks, crabs have returned, and the shell fishing has multiplied for several years. Now, it's in decline. We walk the beach several times a week. That's Roger and Mary Ann. We ask the shell fishermen that they see if they are in favor of the dredging. Everyone we talked to said that they were in favor of the dredging. They also said that the 2000 dredging improved the shell fishing tremendously. And this is from Roger and Mary Ann Garcina. From
We
my,
have that for the record too, please. Thank you. Thank you.
additionally, I have owned my house at 115 T-Ticket Path since 1998, which was before the first recent dredging. And I have lived through a lot of smells from Perch Pond in 1998, 1999, 2000, and they were very bad. People would get sick just by the odor. And that's why the neighborhood pushed so hard in the 2000 area to have it dredged to open up and get flushing. And and I have lived through that, and I don't want to live through that again. And I want to point out on
Could you take the mic with you, sir? It's being recorded by FCTV, so. thank
Okay.
you.
I want to point out here, the present shellfish, the shellfishing is closed all over here, but during the winter months, this is open from this point on. And I would like to have Chuck verify that. Is that correct?
Correct.
So,
The southern half is open.
so this, from this up here, is not open to shell fishing at all, any time of the year. After the dredging in 2000, the second year after the dredging, this area was opened up for at least one season. And then it diminished with time, and now it's back to where it was. So this is a little bit in contrast with some of the other people that have been speaking, but this is my experience. Any questions?
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so now we'll get back to questions and answers for the applicants. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, please.
Matt Sleeper, President of Perch Pond Preservation Association. Clearly, we've all been at this for a while, and there was the question just now that I'd like to address before I get into this particular piece about the width of the pond, or the width of the dredge. And candidly,
and we've all learned a lot through this process, right? We brought Don, and we brought in a lot of experts. We've been trying to work, with the commission to make sure that we were hitting every point for point, to make sure that we were protecting everybody. From the beginning, we've always said, it's not, a specific thing about just navigation, right? It is, and that's what we want, but it really has to do with the health of the pond. In the end, we realized that the pond's struggling. It's struggling greatly at this point in time. So we talked about the width of the channel, and we actually have done studies on the width of the channel, different variations. But we had real trouble trying to balance the actual flushing, the quality of the pond, the health of the water, the oxygen levels of the water, and actually closing down the width of the channel. And then how quickly we'd have to be back at disturbing the beds just to redredge again. So that's a tough balance. It's a tough question. And, clearly something that we seek your advice on. You're at this more than we are. Jen sees it every day. Chuck sees it every day. But again, so that's a balance. It's a question that we just don't understand the answer to, and I don't think anybody in this room fully understands the answer to, the impact of narrowing that channel. But, okay, I'm going to kind of continue on. So the one thing, I've thought about this a lot, because there was a couple of questions asked during the course of this. Mr. Bird asked what Perch Pond has done, beyond kind of asking for dredging, and that's set with me, and there's several other things that have set with me over time. But one of the big things that sits with me more than anything right now is endangered species. Candidly, soft shells aren't endangered. We want to protect them because we believe that bed is an absolute asset to the community. It renders all sorts of benefit, not only to the commercial people and the restaurants, but to the people that live around the pond. I mentioned Klamath. The endangered species here are the residents of the pond and the surrounding community. Candidly, there are people, and Agnes can attest to this in the back row, that had to leave their homes at times when that pond was not dredged for weeks at a time. Larry testified to that during one of our past meetings. We're quickly approaching that point again. 2 years ago, we had a major bloom in the pond that required people to leave. So, it's not just our problem, not just the docks problem. It's everybody that abuts the pond and the neighborhoods that abut the pond. And candidly, it's going to be Falmouth's problem in the end. Because somehow, some way, when that pond stagnates and turns into an incubus for mosquitoes and anything else that's disease-borne out of stagnant water, someone's going to have to take care of it. We've been working hard to try to figure out that balance with you folks, right? It's not just about the navigation channel, and we see that, and we understand it now. And Dawn kind of pointed out as much of that to us as anybody as we had conversations with them about the total ecosystem and how important it was to have the total ecosystem healthy. So, I don't have to go over all of the negatives of not dredging. I think we all understand it. It turns into effectively a cesspool. The past dredge, it presented its one major issue. One major issue, and we all figured it out. We discussed it heavily tonight. Clearly there was a mistake made. That sand was put in the wrong spot. And I don't know who was on the board, I don't know. It was an unintended consequence. So we're trying to mitigate that. We've offered to take the sand to a different location to assist with that. We just feel that by opening that dredge section again, it not only opens up the nursery that lives within the pond and keeps those healthy, clammable maybe again at one point or another with a long-term sustainable plan, but it's more important to keep the whole ecostructure safe and healthy. The benefits were phenomenal. Perch Pond ecosystem thrived. There were plants that grew, fish that grew, clams, eels, birds. Everything in that pond flourished after it was dredged. Recreation resumed. Soft shell and hard shell clamming resumed within the pond for a period of time. Aesthetics improves. The Alexandrium cyst virtually disappeared. We heard that from Dawn, right? And then after a period of time, because of that nursery that lives within the pond, the soft shell clams actually prospered to a point that people have never seen before. That's pretty impressive. But it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't dredged. So, I look at it that way. And then if you look at the pond in its current state, the ecosystem's dying. Spend some time. We live there. I live there every day. I look at it. I love it. It's in my blood. I love the place. But the algae blooms are starting to reoccur. The beauties, the Alexandrian cyst disappeared for now. I hope it stays away. If it seals up, I'm not sure it flushes enough to seal it up. Nitrogen levels are on the increase, but that's not much unlike, Long Pond and other ponds that don't have good flushing. And then, clearly the oxygen levels have significantly degraded. We have dead fish now washing up on the shores in the summer months. It's kind of too bad. And the levels of shellfish, clams, all that type of thing, crabs, et cetera, that are in the pond, the eels, kind of disappear during the murky season. They're gone. They just leave the pond. So what I thought about, and back to Mr. Bird's point, was why don't we look at it differently? Why don't we look at it as a chance for a group of concerned citizens for a pond and an ecosystem to band together with the Waterways Commission, with Chuck, with Mass Fisheries, with everybody else to build a sustainable plan for the pond. Why don't we look at it that way? It needs to be dredged. It needs to be dredged now. I mean, candidly, that pond is dying. But what about the longer term? Why don't we as a group we spent, and I'm going to give you our number, $40,000 to date on this. $40,000, not a minimal fee. And we learned a lot from it. But I said to myself, what could we have done with that $40,000 together to come up with a sustainable plan? And none of that's gotten done. And even if we get the permission to dredge because we narrow the channel, we're still going to be back at the table talking about the same thing in 3 to 5 years. I'd much rather spend the time talking to the collective group about how we protect our ponds in the town of Falmouth and how we make them better and how we work as collective groups and citizens to make sure we support your efforts here. We don't disagree with what you're saying or what you're asking. We don't disagree with anything that Chuck said or Jen says or anybody says. We get it. We just think we should team on it. So that said, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Following questions for the applicants. Betsy.
Your comment just brought something else to mind, and it's a problem everywhere, and it's a problem using flushing as a means to deal with nitrogen pollution, in that the nitrogen's still there, and you're moving the problem somewhere else. I understand why you want to do it, but people have to keep that in mind. This is not without consequences.
Should I go back up there? Or
Yeah, if you're gonna.
No, that's right. No, I just want to, I mean, if you look at the system as a whole, any of these systems, the problem is there's too much nitrogen coming in. Too much nitrogen leads to algal blooms, leads to decreased oxygen. But just back, some of you are as old as I, back when people were first talking about septic systems, here in town, they could have put things in the 50s, but it wasn't done. And the prevailing idea then was the solution to pollution is dilution. Just dilute it. But, we've gotten to the part that that's not a viable solution anymore. And so I do understand your issues, but to get back to Courtney's point, it's our job and our discussion and deliberation is going to be to balance various interests. And there are, I always like to point out that shellfish are important for everybody here who likes to eat them and as an engine for the economy and so forth. But these beds, these very productive beds, are also vital for food webs in the water. This is what eventually gets to your herring, supporting your herring, supporting your striped bass, and so forth. But I have a completely different set of questions to ask. And Brad, put you in the hot seat for a second.
Sure, hope I can answer them.
Can you give me the volume of the dredge material?
Yes, it's 1,100 cubic yards.
Okay. And you talked about moving when it's dredged, you're gonna put it on a barge and you're gonna move it to some landing? What landing are we talking about?
Sure, the Harrington Street boat ramp would be the preferred location, which is down around the corner.
All right. And you might know this, or Jen might be able to say, what will the time of year restrictions be on a project like this? It's winter flounder, certainly.
Yeah, it's winter flounder.
Hang on.
We'll be directed by,
I think it's
so we'll
January.
be directed, the National, Division of Marine Fisheries will weigh in, which they already have. They'll have a window on it. Now, the next step after you folks is that we have to go
January
to the
15th
DEP.
to September 15th, sorry
And
to
we're also
interrupt.
going to the Army Corps of Engineers, so we'll be under review with the National Marine Fisheries as well. So they'll all be time-restricted windows that we'll adhere to.
Okay. The reason I was asking this is that.
January 15th, September 15th.
Okay, that if
For winter flounder.
the sand is gonna be stored somewhere, there's, it can't be stored in parking lots during the summertime.
That's correct.
So any kind of staging would have to be
Typically-
very carefully.
Right. That would be,
Yeah, I mean, the harbor master would be involved too, because you can't tie the ramp up in the summer. Harrington Street's a busy boat.
I don't believe it would be done in the summer.
No.
Typically, dredging is done
We
in the
would be
winter.
doing it between,
Right, and there's
would have to be done in
additional
the fall.
restriction for some.
yes, it would have to be done between September 15th and January 15th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that was
The restriction is from January to September.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, and those are
But
the,
it's fair to say they can't stage it somewhere like.
well, that's what
No.
my
Regardless.
point is.
It's
Couldn't
all
be-
in,
Anyway.
all
Yeah.
silt-producing activity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, actually, I did have one other question for you, Brad. Did you do, I mean, with the Chuck's department's surveys, did you do any grain size analysis on the sand?
Not with the shellfish survey, but we did borings and analyzed the material. And the sieve analyses are in the notice of intent
Yeah,
application.
that's where you have it back here.
So yes, we did thorough testing for chemicals and for sand profile.
Okay, thanks.
It's in the notice.
Yep, those are my questions.
Thank you.
Mary?
I don't have any questions, just to comment at this time. I do appreciate your willingness to reconsider the beach nourishment plan. It's helpful. But as has been said a number of times, I think what we're looking at is balancing competing values. I consulted the literature on some various effects on things, and unfortunately, it's an area where not a lot is known or been studied, wasn't helpful. So we're going to have to just use our best judgment, I think. There's nothing else we can do.
Excuse me, I would like to say something, I'm an outsider.
Sir, please go to the microphone, give your name.
Very simple.
Oh, just one.
I live on T-Ticket Path also, Frank Pisano.
One more time with your name, please.
Frank Pisano, I live on T-Ticket Path. One of my main concerns, I don't need the water to go with the boat in and out, but I am concerned about the smell. The smell is just very bad, very bad. That's it.
Okay, we appreciate that. I'm gonna open up to the public. We're gonna just do some, yeah.
I'm finished.
Jamie?
Brad, I have a question for you. Could you remind me, please, what was it dredged down to in 2000?
I believe it was -4. There's some conflicting, the permits were somewhat conflicting. There's a couple references to -3 and -4. But I'm pretty sure it was -4. I did speak with the Barnstable County dredge operator, and he has records of the as-built that I haven't been able to obtain, but he remembers taking out quite about 1,500 cubic yards or so. And then they had to go back and actually do a little bit more on that 2000 event. So that would have been to a -4. That's what, that was, I spoke with Wayne Jedke at the Barnstable County Dredge, the codfish.
And you're proposing what?
-4.
-4. Thank you.
I didn't hear him exactly say
Anything else?
that.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Lauren?
Brad, just one quick question. You just stated that you couldn't find the as-built for that? Or
Right.
you were trying to find the as-built?
Right.
Am I correct? Okay. And it's just that this has been going on since April 20th, 2015, so it would have...
Actually, December.
Okay, it would have just been very helpful to know what that depth was for, what we would be considering.
Right,
in
well, the
this project.
permits were -4, as I said, there was some reference to -3, but as far as the permits go. Now, this was a Town of Falmouth Waterways permit. So typically, there's, as any project, there's an as-built requirement. As you know, sometimes and I've been involved in town projects there, those aspects aren't followed up on. I couldn't find any of the records at the town that they did any as-built survey, so I did reach out to the Barnstable County Dredge. I had a number of different phone calls in with them, and we talked for 10, 15 minutes. He said he would make them available to me. It's not that he was not cooperational, it's just that I left many messages, and we just moved on to the next phase.
So it wasn't for want of trying, anyway?
No,
You
and
wrote
it wasn't
okay.
necessarily an as-built plan. It was more of a dredge plan that they would have gone by for volume. So it wasn't, I don't know if there was ever truly an as-built bathymetric plan. It was more of a dredger's plan, what they would know, what they took out, as far as volume.
Okay. And then the next question, just only because I can't see the bottom of that plan, the date. I just want to make sure that I am referencing the correct date of the plan, which is April 20th, 2015. Is that the same one that's up there?
April 20, 2015.
Okay,
yeah,
because
so-
sometimes when,
Hearing
these
was
things get
December.
continues a lot, you get revised, and I just want to make sure I wasn't missing a revision.
No.
And the last thing that's all. That's
Thank
all I
you.
have for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Kristen?
Well, yes, it's balancing a high rate of development. And I appreciate what the fellow out there said about, yes, the odors and thinking of other ways. I'm just wondering, with all the money that's been spent so far, has anybody thought about septic and fertilization and keeping the nitrogen levels down in the pond and allowing nature to do its work instead of, taking out the only shellfish area that is useful for fishermen, for shell fishermen? I mean, that's just something that comes to mind. How many people use septic fertilizers? How much of the human pollution is causing this odor is really something to think about. There's also the flounder habitat that hasn't been addressed, so that's of particular concern. I'll just leave it at that for now.
Did you want to answer that question? Is there questions on septic?
How many people had D-night systems or weren't fertilizing it, I think is what she asked.
Most of the houses have been sold around there, and septic systems have been upgraded in the last 20 years.
But those are Title V, they're not denitrifying systems. There's a big difference. Look, for instance, West Falmouth.
They're not the old systems. They're the
Sir,
new systems.
you're going to have to go to the,
Hi, John Flynn, I'm at 147 T-Ticket Path on the corner of, I still can't pronounce the road, Key Kitchen or something like that.
Japan.
Whatever it's called. I'm on the corner there. So we're right on the water there. And we've had the house for about 20 years as a summer home. And my son grew up around there, so we've been down by the water a lot. And I was there when we bought the house. It was a dead pond, basically. because I used to get down there with them when they were small and look for crabs and that kind of shells and that. There was nothing, there was absolutely nothing there. Now, I get down there, there's all kinds of crabs, there's all kinds of mussels, shellfish. Everything you can imagine is in the water, eels, striped bass, you catch striped bass in the pond. Before that, there was nothing there, and as the other gentleman was saying, there was a big odor, which we didn't get too much because we were at the end of it, but people down the pond got a bigger problem with odor than we did. And to answer what your question was, all the septic systems along the pond, on that side of the pond anyhow, have been upgraded. They might not be the nitrogen resistant ones that you're talking about, but they've all been improved over the last 20 years or so that we've been there. So all I can say is the pond is greatly, it was a dead pond. When I moved here, I didn't know what eelgrass was. Now I know what it is because it's all over our backyard now. We have eelgrass on the pond. I didn't know what it was. But the pond is greatly improved since they did the original dredging. And I have an aerial photograph of it. I didn't think to bring it tonight because I drove down tonight just for this. It shows the actual inlet where they actually dredged into it. And the town dredge was there and only went so far. And then they had a private guy come in and do the rest of it. But the pond is 100% different than it used to be. There were no clams there before they did the dredging. Now it sounds like they have too many clams, but there was nothing there before. Hardly any shellfish. I mean, Hyde Peters, who was an old guy here from town, used to talk about it years ago, that it was the best place in Falmouth to go get soft-shell clams. And he used to tell me it's not that way anymore. I met him at the Elk Club is where I met him. But he knew more about it than anybody around this town, if any of you guys know his name. He used to say that was the best place to get soft-shell clams, and he used to tell me now you can't get it, couldn't get anything, but he said it was nothing like it used to be. Now it's back to what it used to be since they dredged it. And the only complaint or bitching I've heard about the shellfishermen is when they dredge the pond, they can no longer walk across because the water's too deep. They're not worried about the clams. They're worried because they can't walk from one side to the other. And it's all private property there. They go to their access to the pond is because we don't bitch about them walking across our land to go to the pond.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So all I can say is the pond has greatly improved since we've lived there. And the dredging, and Paul's answer to me when I asked him about it, he says, we should fill the pond in, and we wouldn't have a problem. So that's what I think of Paul.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify for the record, and Chuck can correct me if I'm mistaken, but there is no eelgrass up in that area. It's another type of vegetation, but it is not eelgrass. I need to clarify that for the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Courtney?
No.
Unfortunately, he's left the room, and I had a question for him.
Oh, they're right there.
Who do you want, Brian or?
Yeah.
Brad, Brian, or
Not
Mike?
Brian Wall, the other.
Brad.
Brad.
Taking some fresh air time.
So you have, my question in a narrow sense is, were we to approve this project, I could not support it until you identified a specific place, upland location, that this sand was going to be deposited on, with permission from the owner and all the environmental okays on it, before we would ever want to sign off on it. I'm not going to buy as a commissioner, it'll be stored off-site. I want to know where, and I want to know where it's going to be stored. I want to know the permissions. I want to know that it's approved. It's an approved location.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, Courtney and Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, if this is not your plan, but the way I hear what they're saying is that it will be trucked off-site to an approved location that would probably be given if the sediment is used for nourishment, it would be in cooperation with the town does have a certain storage facility where they keep that, correct? Okay, and.
All I
as-
want is it to be identified
And
and
I
it's
think
cool.
they have stated that they would, if the material were to be used for beach nourishment, it would be placed at an already approved
Yeah.
site contained in the beach.
I want it
comprehends-
identified, that's all.
According when the town's, if, let's say this, if the town stores sand, okay? I can't particularly tell you if the sand coming out of this place, or the sand coming out of Inner Harbor, or the sand coming out of the mouth is going to go on Minot, Surf,
No,
or
I
something.
understand.
So, you understand that?
Understood.
Okay.
But, you know, you don't truck something off and you don't know where it's going.
Okay.
That's all.
I'm trying to
I
clarify
mean,
it for you, Mr. Parker.
I love these sort of vague specifications that go to a off-site, to a legally approved area. It's vague. I want to know what the area is and where the approval is. So that's point number one.
I would be comfortable if it were a condition that information was put in before the project started.
Yeah,
That's okay.
okay, thank you.
Now,
I don't
so
think they would know.
that's number
It's gonna
one.
be up
Number
to the beach
two,
superintendent.
I want to follow on something that Betsy and some of my other fellow commissioners have commented on. And there are 13 resource area values that are identified at the beginning of our regulations. And as I mentioned before, Brian pointed out a couple of them that were concerned, and it's our concern to balance them out. In truth, dredging this channel is only treating the symptom, not the cure. The problem is not water flow. We happen to live on a dynamic, anyone that lives on the shore, anywhere, knows that it's dynamic. There are plenty of places along our shoreline and within the town of Falmouth that at one point were open to the sea and are now closed off and are isolated ponds. They're either brackish water or fresh. And so if nature were to follow its course, eventually this channel would probably shoal in. It might open up in storms. It would close up. And eventually, assuming that sea level rise didn't overtake the process, it eventually would be isolated. If anyone's read, was a famous work by, Betsy, you got to refresh my mind, The Life and Death of a Salt Marsh. That was,
John Teal.
yeah. One of his comments in his book was that all marshes, and this in a sense is a marsh to be, have a finite history. They, by nature, fill in, whether mankind does anything about it or not. They just shoal in and fill in and eventually get converted to, salt, grasslands and so forth. And that's what would happen here. If you're looking at not 100 years or 10 years, you're looking at 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 years. And the question that you guys need to consider, and I heard something that's really important from one of you, you need to develop a comprehensive approach to this issue. To just dredge this channel out and spend the money for that doesn't really solve your problem. As somebody commented, in 5 years, 10 years, you'll be back. After another bad storm, you'll be back asking for the same thing. And there'll be other people sitting here, and there'll be other people sitting there, but the same issues will be presented, and you will not have attacked the issue, the fundamental issues of overdevelopment around that pond. Now, you guys live there, and it's a valuable resource, and I can appreciate the fact, as can everyone sitting up here, that in the summertime, when the water flow is bad and the algae bloom, the pond stinks. And that's not what you bought when you bought that pristine waterfront lot in T-Ticket Path. And yet, the issue is if you don't attack why that pond is having its problems, then you're not going to solve the problem. You'll be back at it again and again and again. One gentleman got up during this thing and testified that we really need to develop an overall plan that involves all the stakeholders. The fishing interests, the clamming interests, shellfish, boating, recreation, the homeowners. And in a way, as I sit here listening to that comment, which I happen to buy into, I think it's well thought through, and it's right on. It's almost premature to consider dredging a channel without it being part of a big plan. And the big plan has to attack a lot of things, not just flushing out the channel by digging it out, assuming you can work through the shellfish issues satisfactorily. It doesn't, you still got the problem of septic systems leaching nitrogen into the pond. You've got the problem of people putting fertilizer on it because they want to have a beautiful green lawn with no dandelions or anything else in it, and so they fertilize. And then they put their irrigation systems on and water the lawn so it doesn't turn brown. And all of that nitrogen leaches into the pond. And after a while, the algae grow and they die and it stinks. And dredging it is an expensive, short-term solution. I'd hate to see you guys come back in another year. You get this, suppose we approve this project. And you go and you spend whatever it's going to cost to dredge it all out, and it's lovely all summer long. Everybody's happy, the fish are happy, the clams are happy, the boaters are happy, the neighbors are happy, until a hurricane comes and fills it in again. And you're still back to where you were before. You still have septic systems dumping nitrogen in. You still have the lawns being fertilized. You haven't solved the problem. So what I'm getting at is, I think the suggestion that you come up with a comprehensive plan makes sense. And dredging, if that's part of it, that should make sense. But I think to attack this by itself is not right.
Very good. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, Jen, I'm going to open up to the public. Just, again, please go to the podium and give your name and have your piece. Max, go right ahead.
Max Wyfuss, 3 Seabrook Drive. I think you see a group of people who are trying to solve a problem that's immediate. I think you talked about a symptom. I think a problem is really, one of the problems is the smell. And it's a short-term problem. And I think it is solved. I'm not a biologist, I'm not an engineer, but it certainly sounds to me like dredging would in fact help solve that problem. And I agree, maybe it's a solution for 5 or 10 years, but I'm not going to be here for 1,000. I'm not going to be here for the next major hurricane. So we're looking to solve a small problem. And to me, when you talk about weighing the pros and cons, and I can appreciate your challenge, but to me it seems that if you don't dredge, the pond dies. To me, that sounds like a given, right? If you dredge, you get the benefits that Matt spoke about. I think that they're legitimate benefits, and I understand that it has a short impact to the shellfish and the environment. But if I were weighing it, if I were sitting there, to me, the benefits of the dredging and not killing the pond, which is inevitable, outweigh the shorter impact of the impact on the shellfish.
Thanks. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Paul Cap, T-Ticket resident off of Seabrook Drive. A couple of things. One, I'm not sure what your people's mission statement is and how much weight clams have over the environment, right? But with the pond dying, it's the whole environment. Now, I like to think of things in common sense terms. The square footage or meters of the dredge area is a minuscule part of that pond. And they've done 3 readings, a square meter of how many animals. They didn't tell us how many the too low number one were, but they Chuck kept saying 1,400. Well, if there's 1,400 in every square meter there, what is there in the rest of the pond? You're sacrificing the rest of the pond for that little area. Now, you talk about nitrogen loading. You know, the town could have brought the Little Pond Sewer Project up to cover Perch Pond. They neglected to do that, all right? The town has decided to dredge Bourne's Pond. I don't know how many clams they're gonna kill there, but they're gonna dredge it as opposed to building a bigger bridge. So common sense has to come into play here and not grain size of sand. You know, those things, I'm sure they're important, but in the overall picture, we have to save this pond.
So just so you know, they are increasing the size of the Bourne's Pond Bridge.
Okay, but they're gonna dredge it also, right?
They have to do something in there. I don't know what the plan is other than putting a bigger bridge in there.
Second culvert, Mr. Chairman.
Pardon me?
Second culvert. A second culvert.
Anyone else?
Excuse me?
Go ahead, sir.
Ben Falletra, I live on Estrella Lane. I'm new to this whole thing. I got something in my door the other day that this meeting was taking place. I don't know a whole lot of the history, but someone, I think it was Ms. Schumacher, said something about she's done some research and hasn't been able to find a whole lot of information on this kind of thing. But I guess I have to ask the question, it was dredged about 10, 15 years ago, and what did we learn from that? And from my perspective, if you can't find a whole lot of information on the internet or wherever else, no one's written all kinds of stuff about it, you take a look at what's actually happened here in your own community as a result of what was done 10 to 15 years ago. And it seems to me, from what I'm hearing from everybody here today, is that 10 to 15 years ago, this pond was dying back then, and the dredging brought it back to life. Now, what I see happening there is that it's starting to happen again, and will dredging do the same thing that it did 10 or 15 years ago? It seems logical that the same thing will occur again. The information or the idea that, you know, a long-term plan is important, and I think that is important, because it seems that you don't want to keep dredging every 10 years, because that's a lot of money. But if you don't dredge now, are you going to end up with, in 3 to 5 years, a dead pond, and a lot of people living around an area that is much more difficult to live around? It seems to me that dredging is maybe the first step in a long-term plan, but if you don't do that soon enough, you'll end up with a dead pond sooner than you think. So maybe the idea about dredging is important to do now, and then begin the process of, along with dredging, developing a long-term plan in addition to that process. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Mike Morselli. Mike, quick question. Up near the northwest corner, up in Perch Pond, what is the depth going? Because our plan only shows right at the end of that. Did you ever do anything further up, way up to the end?
I didn't go further than that because we are into over 5 feet of water.
It's like a
position,
kettle
so
pond.
I figured as we were into sufficient water depth.
Okay, thank you.
We didn't extend the survey any further.
Thank you.
And I have a question for Brad. One of the things I remember, I think it was the first hearing, we talked about water quality.
Yes.
And I said, I suggested that if one of the arguments, I realize that there's anecdotal evidence, but if one of the arguments is water quality, do you have any data showing changes in water quality?
I don't have any, but the town of Falmouth Waterways Department does. In my research, there was a report after the dredging that had some documented improvements, and it was in their files.
But
I
then
haven't studied
we've
it,
been
but it's there.
told from everyone here that now it's decreased again, but,
Oh, do we have anything current as far as what
yeah.
I can give you for numbers? No, there hasn't
Yeah.
been any,
I mean-
any numbers given.
Saying it's gonna be a dead pond, maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe the hurricane will blast a hole open and it'll flush out. I mean, I would like, you know that I would like to see some data showing that it has been progressively deteriorating through the years.
We can investigate
Please,
that.
sir,
There is a
okay?
report that's on the,
Please.
that's
Everybody
in the
has a right to
files.
their opinion here, okay?
And I can provide that to the commission. It was done after the dredging by Joseph Fornes, and it had documented beneficial results after the dredge. I can provide that to you, but I don't have anything
Yeah, but I'm more
current.
interested in what happened from that period to now.
What we do know that has happened from that period to now is that the channel has shoaled in significantly, and that's why we're here. That's what we know. We don't have, I can't answer the what-ifs. If all we know is from that period, it's shoaled in, and it's continuing to shoal. So we know from past experience that it has shoaled in and degraded the environment, and as you've heard tonight, I think that's, trending. I don't have any other data to give you than that.
Thanks.
Anything else? Anything else from the public?
Hi, my name is Mark McDermott, 51 Dorchester. My wife and I bought a home on this pond about 1.5 years ago. I don't have a boat, so I can't talk to that. I can talk to what Chuck said. I believe that's what his name was, canoes and kayaks. And I'll tell you, at a certain point, I'm a 200-pound guy, I can't get through that shoal. I can't get through that at a certain point because the water is 2-3 inches deep. So if you're talking about looking at the water level and how much that has come in, it's almost shut off at low tide. So it's very difficult to even enjoy that with my kids in a kayak. And I know there's commercial fishermen here, but there's also hundreds of homeowners, taxpayers that want a waterfront or a street that they can walk down to the water. And it seems like you need to look at our homes also, So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
John Flynn, I know I spoke before, but to answer your question, almost every week it's published in the Falmouth paper, the water quality at Perch Pond. And it's actually better at times than Falmouth Harbor is, as far as the oxygen level, and I'm not an expert on it, but I just...
So those data do exist?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's been published in the paper for years.
Yeah, but it's not my responsibility to go back.
Well,
and
you're
look
on
at
the
paper.
Conservation Commission, I'm not.
I know it's in the paper, but you're the applicant.
I'm just a resident, I'm not an applicant.
Well, no,
The point
Perch
is-
Pond Association is the applicant. When we had a hearing, previous hearing, we talked about water quality.
Shouldn't you enlighten yourself about the water quality if you're gonna
Mr.
have
Chairman.
if you're gonna make a
You know what,
decision?
sir, that's enough, okay? Enough. Anything else, please? Nothing more?
New topic.
new info, please.
Yeah, just one comment.
Short to
Matt
people
Sleeper,
know.
President of Perch Pond. We actually did touch base on that comment about water quality in the second, at least the topic of the water testing was brought up in a public forum in this meeting. The fact that it's done on a regular basis, I can't remember if it was Mary Kate or Peter or someone, or Mary Beth, I'm sorry, or Peter or someone, but they do regular testing. They do publish it regularly. We brought that up in the meeting. I think Jen might have even touched on it, but it has been done for years on that pond, just so we know. Pardon?
Yeah, I think my point is, my point
One
is,
at a time, please. One at a time. Thanks.
no, will you go on? That was
Right,
my
Jamie.
question.
Just a
Jamie.
question.
I guess, did we provide it? Not to my
No.
knowledge, because I'm not sure we were specifically asked. We were specifically asked for many things. That was not one that was specifically asked for. We were asked if it was done, and we said, yes, it is done, and it is published. And I'm not sure what group does it. Anybody know who does it? But it's,
Is it Pond
well, we can
Watchers?
figure out who it is, because we can figure out who,
Pond
you know.
Watchers?
Yeah, so anyway, I just want to make sure you understood that. It was brought up, but it was not
Well,
specifically asked for testing.
I was the one, I know,
Yeah,
because I was the
yeah.
one who brought it up, and I asked to see what the changes were over time.
Yeah.
She
That's
did ask to see
what I
what
was
the changes
interested in.
were. If you were going to use water quality, that is one of the things this board did request at one of the first or second hearings, was that if water quality was going to be one of the concerns raised by this applicant, that data be provided.
And we never went down the path of water quality. What we are simply stating in this meeting is the deterioration of the pond and the net result of it. I'm not saying, I mean, the
Well,
town publishes
your
water.
lawyer went through, talked about water quality.
Okay,
Mr.
so,
Chairman.
again, but what, in my comments, and we can talk to that after, and it's something we can certainly try to provide by going to whoever the source is. But, I mean, everybody here is speaking to the degradation of the pond, and the fact that it's stagnating, and the smell that's being created, and the death of the fish and the ecosystem. That's what we're talking about. And to me, that's significant, and I'm sure that somehow, some way, water quality plays a role in all of those outcomes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else?
So,
Mr.
Mr. Chair,
Wall?
I have nothing new, but what I wanted to say is I got the sense from Courtney regarding the dredge plan, from Betsy regarding the water quality points, that we need to submit some more information to you. So I'm going to be asking for a continuance. I also got Mr. Montague's email today, and so I'd like the chance to digest that and get back to you. And I know that Jen's going to raise her hand. Before I ask for the continuance, I would also respectfully request whatever feedback the board is willing to give us regarding the issue about the width of the channel. In all honesty, as Mr. Sleeper put it, we're in a dilemma. We could make it more narrow for boating purposes, but we're concerned about reducing the flushing. And so we'd like to hear from the board on that to some extent.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, Jen.
this is the fourth continuance. This application was submitted to you in December. This applicant has had ample opportunity to provide all the information. I understand that Attorney Wall has just been retained. That said, this board is not going to, you don't design the dredge footprint for an applicant. This applicant was told at the very first hearing that this board wanted to see a smaller footprint, that this board wanted to see a reduced beach nourishment, which was done, thank you. But that is inappropriate for the applicant and for Attorney Wall to ask you for feedback about how you want to see this channel. That is for them to go and decide how they want the channel to be laid out, and for them to present it to this board. This board also asked for the water quality information, if water quality were to be used, if that was a concern, at the first hearing. This is the fourth continuance. Attorney Wall was made aware of it when he contacted us. I offered to reach out and ask and have a conversation about what this board was looking for. I did not hear back from Attorney Wall. So you can grant another continuance, but I would caution the applicant that this will probably be the last one, because it's basically the same plan as presented to you 4 times. You have asked for very specific information. Some of it has presented, it is very encouraging to see that the Alexandrium cyst is not here, is not present anymore. But all the other information has been glossed over. There's a lot of hearsay information that's been said, a lot of misrepresentation. I'd like to ask the shellfish constable, has there been a documented fish kill on this pond? Thank you.
The answer was not that you could recall.
Not that he was aware of. So, I would say one more continuance if this board is willing to grant it. But all that information should be provided, and this board should not be the one designing a dredge footprint.
And it did come up too about the
It did.
shellfish survey.
It came out at the very first hearing about a
No,
shellfish survey, about a reduced
Glad
dredge
I asked that
footprint,
specifically.
and about
I
water
saw it in
quality
minutes.
data.
So that would kind of give us a little bit more information about the animals, you know?
Can I speak to that for just a
Dragging
second?
this out for months on
I
end.
think, Brad, you're correct that because we were talking about this, in several other dredging projects, we've not had a shellfish survey.
That is
But-
because those.
but wait, I have the floor now,
Okay.
Jen. Thank you. But the critical question about this particular project is soft shell habitat.
Yep.
Because that's, so limited in town, number one, and number two, we see from the limited amount that was done that it's a very productive habitat. And
So if I could ask a question about that, and I do not mean this to come out facetiously at all. The town did the survey. The result was the land is significant to shellfish, and we're not disputing that. So what would an additional survey provide? What would be the objective of the survey?
Well, somebody
I
got
think
up and questioned the fact that, you got 1,200 here, and then there's less down here. We don't have that number.
Because normally, when we were here for docks, there's sometimes a contest between whether it is significant or whether it's not
That's good.
significant.
That's
We're conceding it's
Brian,
significant.
I realize that you're new to this, and I don't know whether you watched the tapes.
I read the minutes.
All right, but what we did ask was, the reason what Jen asked is that the applicant come and that we as a board would approve a shellfish sampling project. I mean, this is what Chuck's group did is great, and it was nice that the town offered that to your applicant. But I think we would have looked, there was testimony from some of the people here about where shellfish was to either side. I mean, the question is, when you do dredging, it's not just where you're dredging that might be affected. And I think if I had worked with Jen on this, and I've worked on shellfish and shellfish surveys and so forth, I would have suggested a sampling plan where we could see not only what happens in the area of the dredge, but in some selected areas to either side. But that wasn't done.
I understand that, I get the point, but now, because of chronologically where we are, that the applicant, I guess, didn't do it, the town took the measure to do it. Do we need more information on that, on shellfish, or not? I mean, because we're
That's not my early on, my critical questions were, if the habitat is degrading and there are data to support that, I would like to see those data.
The habitat in perch.
Correct.
Okay. And so, I'd like to go back to the request for continuance, and the only response I have to what Jen says is that there are a lot of people interested in this, a lot of resources have been spent. One more continuance is reasonable, I think, under the circumstances.
I'm willing at least to put that forth if we have a date.
That would be fine, and staff would recommend that be done as long as the information this board has requested at this hearing, and as they've requested at the two prior hearings, be submitted to them, Brian. That is why I asked to speak with you.
Well,
Because
with all due respect, you asked to speak about the shellfish survey. And so
And no, I actually can read the email I sent to you.
I will.
Read it, please. Brian, how long is your group going to need to compile the information that this board has requested and look at possibly reducing that dredge footprint channel? Because they do have kind of a limited schedule this summer, and it's getting more limited as we speak with your joint meetings, so.
There may be two of them, too.
I'll be getting to that.
Through the chair, I just had one quick question or a comment. I remember at
Maybe
one of the
they ask him for
hearings,
this information.
I think it was the president, I'm not sure, made a comment about not wanting to do a shellfish survey because of the expense. So I just want to make sure that.
And that's why the town needed to step in and do
Okay,
it,
that's what I thought, because
we
they-
didn't know the population out there, and we
Correct.
needed to be prepared for a hearing.
Okay.
So the town spent the town's resources
To do
doing
it. That's
a shellfish
the
survey for a
an
private applicant.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that I remembered that correctly.
And that's why I don't want to beat a dead horse, but now that the town did the survey, is there more work that needs to be done, or is that satisfactory to the board?
So why don't we do it this way? If we're looking at a continuance here, what
What
are
are the
things
reasons
we
for the,
need?
yeah, what are we looking at?
What do we need from them for the next hearing?
The reason I wanted it, and the board can think about this, is to see what effect the dredging would have on these shellfish resources that are nearby. So you can't know what the effect would be if you don't know.
Well, don't we already know what the,
population is.
don't we know what the effect is if Mr. Brown and the shellfish constables spoke to us and asked us, and explained to us the absolute decline after they dredged? There were improvements on other resources, but the shellfish themselves declined. It took 10 years for them to come back.
Well, there were two, well,
I don't
is he
know, I'm
here?
just-
Is he still here? Dave, are you here?
Yeah, he's here.
Okay, my understanding,
Can
Dave,
you
is-
come up?
Can you come up, Dave?
Please.
My understanding is that the area where you won't be putting the dredge spoils, those areas along the western side of the pond
Right.
were buried, et cetera, and it took almost 10 years for that to come back.
Well, not just there, but that included.
That included.
But that area, like that channel that runs up into,
Right, that also didn't happen, but my understanding from some of the people here, and also from you, is that there still were some beds to either side. Now, I don't know, is that correct?
small amounts, yeah.
Small amounts?
Very small amounts. You couldn't, 5, 6 years ago, you could barely get enough shellfish to eat. And that's me digging. It'd be hard for me to find a meal in Great Pond, a meal of
And
steamers.
this is the area where
5 or
Jen
6
said as you
That's
walked
anywhere
over,
in the pond.
you saw lots of holes of
Correct.
shit. So that's why I had suggested that we work together with the applicant to have a survey so that if this dredging is done, we know the effect, not only where the survey is, but to either side. That was my purpose.
We did, when we did it with the town, we did do a couple quadrants up inside,
Mhm.
like up towards the end here.
Yeah, but my understanding is that, see that little peninsula
Yep.
to the east? East of the dredging?
This
No,
side.
over there.
Yeah.
That around those shores, there's some there too.
Betsy, I've
We
reached
didn't
out to the applicant multiple times requesting to have a discussion about doing a shellfish survey. We've been met with silence. I
Well,
can show you the emails.
I guess my question is to the board, do you think it's worth?
I mean, you guys need to
Jen
decide
and
what you
me
want.
working with the applicant
And
to
Chuck.
sample some of these areas, because if we do have dredging, I think we should follow back to see what happens.
Sir, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
if you're going to do it, you need to do it in a very quantified way, Beth.
Well,
You know that.
I know that, thank you.
What else? What else do we need from the applicant?
So I would agree that I think it's critical that we have this information. I think it's appropriate for Betsy to, and Jen and
Chuck.
the applicant to work together to iron this out. We need to understand what the impact of this is going to be, because in my mind, it's central to whether we approve it or not. And I think it's also important for the applicant to submit an alternative, narrower dredge line.
We've already asked for that,
Twice.
twice.
And I would like to see
Quality data.
You guys-
a report on how water quality has changed over time in the pond.
Okay. If we, I'm taking this all down. I don't know if we can provide that, but we will try.
Well, somebody, apparently, if it's in the paper,
We're gonna call the
somebody's
paper.
taking
Yeah.
collecting data on a regular basis.
We're gonna
So-
call the enterprise to
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah, but I think there's a group that does it around town, but I just don't know who it is.
And maybe,
The
pond
pond
watchers.
Pond
watchers. I think UMass does it too, don't they do it in their software?
They've done the estuaries project.
Yeah.
And they should have some data, but I'm not sure how recent.
Oh, okay.
All right,
They
so,
are.
okay, what else do we need? I just want to make sure the applicant
Those,
knows
I
what
think,
we're
were the
looking
three.
for. That's, what,
Was that it, Jen?
Let me caution the board, just because you're giving the applicant a list doesn't mean you can shut your brains down next time because the applicant didn't provide you something. It doesn't mean that
Jen,
if
whoa,
something
whoa, whoa, whoa,
arises.
whoa, whoa.
No, I didn't mean that, but it just means you
That's-
can't have a very narrow-minded about a bulleted list. If something else comes up and this board wants to consider it as evidence, you can, and the applicant cannot sit there and state that you cannot. So yes, you're giving them guidance, you're giving them a list, but I want to caution this board and the applicant that if the board asks another question that, comes out of that, the applicant can say, well, you didn't request that before. That's happened to this board in the past, and we've been given guidance from
that's
council
why I was
that
trying to
that's
give them a
not
list
enough.
so that we, at
at
least these
Yes.
guys knew
At
what we
this
were working
point.
from.
We've
Okay.
given.
I think that's what Brian asked.
Anything else?
What do we
Yeah,
need
in
at
other-
this
in
point?
other-
We've been
Facts.
2 hours into this, this
Yeah.
is getting ridiculous, let's move this on.
In defense
been
of the
4
applicant,
meetings on
in
this.
defense of the applicant, I'm familiar with your regulations that says that the board has discretion to determine the level of information it
Thank you.
requires. And that's why I'm asking for the list, not to box the board in, but to provide the information the board wants.
Right.
Thank you, Brian.
Can we get a date?
Could we have June 22nd, is that possible?
There is no June 20, no. Is that gonna give you enough time?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
So
June
what-
22nd,
Brian, if something does come up, can you make sure that we respond to staff? If staff sends an email, can somebody please respond?
Yes.
Because that was part of the complaint, was we would get no feedback at all. When Jen would send something out, and there was nothing to feedback.
I will communicate with Jen.
thank you.
We're talking June 22nd?
That is tough for staff. Brian, would July 13th work for you or no? I know it's pushing you out 2 weeks,
Yeah, I was
but.
gonna say,
A little bit around that time.
is there a date before June 22nd?
June 8th, because they have a joint meeting with the planning board on the
That's-
15th, which
that's
most
gonna
of
be
them
too-
don't know about.
That's gonna be too soon.
Yep.
15th of,
Brad, are you not around on the 13th of July?
The 13th, I'll make sure it works.
Is that what we're saying? We agreeing with
July
July
13th?
13th?
July 13th.
At the request,
Excuse me, can I ask, does the staff work for the town?
Yes, I do, sir.
So you.
There are no hearings for the next couple of weeks afterwards, so it's going to be difficult for the board to get together. Okay?
So it's not you, it's not
It's the
staff.
board, sir. They don't have a
We
hearing
have
on the
other
29th, and they
hearings.
don't have a
So
hearing
we pay
on
year round.
the July 6th
I don't know
hearing.
what that means, look. Stop.
at the request of the applicant.
Before I agree to July 13th, is it all right? Sure. Is it what was the reason, June 22nd?
They don't have a meeting on the 29th or the 6th, Brian.
What about the 22nd, though? What was the,
No, but then they close the hearing, and they're not meeting for a couple of weeks, and they should be,
Oh.
that's why.
I
You see
get
what
it.
I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, thank you.
The 13th, please, of July.
At the request of the applicant.
Yes.
At the request of the applicant, I move that we continue this to the 13th of July.
Second.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments, questions from the commission? Comments, questions from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved.
I am so sick of this. And you wonder why people don't want to be a volunteer?
Sure, we always have openings on these boards, too,
head.
if you ever want to join. We always have openings.
Because you're all so nice to us. And if you did your homework, we wouldn't be here tonight.
We've asked for the information
2-minute break.
3 times. Possibly.
Okay, we're back in session. And up is 71 Minor Street, Falmouth, Mass.
I have no idea.
Quorum, you want a quorum?
Is mine at the little one, the one with the garage?
It's the one I
Yeah.
can never pronounce.
They want to
Yeah.
put in the garage.
Yes,
Okay.
Mike, Maury, Kristen, Courtney,
Yeah,
everybody.
I remember that one. I actually remember that.
Tom,
I could remind everybody about this hearing, but I won't.
I'll remind
take
people
his
about the
version.
hearing.
Did you bring what I brought you?
For the record, my name is Tom Bunker. With BSS Design, I like coloring. Because I so thoroughly enjoy my time here, I'm not sure I can say that tonight. I know you appreciate artwork. I have this valuable limited edition piece of art. There are only 12 printed, you know. This is numbered 1 out of 12. And one was horribly defaced by a crowd of hooligans. I'm sure well-intentioned.
Are you gonna frame that and have them next to one another?
Tom, I tried to get you in
Just so you know,
here
we
before the
got
last one.
summoned to town hall.
Are there more?
Is that for the board, Tom? Do we get
Yes.
to hang that in our office?
This one is not for me, but I can certainly frame this for my office.
Yes,
So you
I never
have-
got to sign it.
You were away?
I was away.
Oh, Betsy, I signed for you.
Love Betsy.
I guess my spirit was with it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it does, that handwriting does look a little bit like.
It's forged.
Jen's handwriting. So it's numbered 1 out of 12.
Thank you, Tom.
All right.
See, we can have fun.
I haven't thrown any darts at this yet.
Hey, that's a good use for it.
That's what I told her when she first
I know.
came in.
And when I called, like, a day later, I asked him how many darts were already sticking in it. Thank you, Tom. And for the record, Tom, I did switch it, trying to get you in before that last one. and-
Betsy,
I told them.
Yeah, if you look at I did. Sorry, that's what I was trying to say.
Oh, speaking of which, do we have the on table?
Yes, you did.
I moved to be on table.
When did we continue the last one, too?
Motion by Betsy
No.
and a second by Mary.
July,
On table, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Oh,
no.
13.
yep.
frankly, if we'd had that big audience here, I wouldn't have felt comfortable
Giving that award, yeah.
giving out the award. yeah.
Thank you.
So Jen wanted to, after last hearing, or during last hearing, Jen said that she would like to come out and take a look. We had a photo, Sean Wolf produced a photo from
Yep.
when he first bought the property, and Jen and Sean and I met at the site. Sean had done, this planting was done, I think, prior to the first meeting. There's an area, and Sean wisely had not planted where I showed the planting on the original plan, being a slope down to the wetland with a lot of knotweed. So Jen looked at that, and so what this area here, roughly 900 square feet, has a lot of knotweed in it that Sean has been working on, and Jen wanted me to put this on here for the record to get permission to continue treating the knotweed. We revised the narrative to include a paragraph about knotweed treatment, stem injection, and perhaps some wet glove technique. Sean is a licensed applicator, he works for Hamilton, so he could do that properly. It's her opinion that with this that was planted and taking some time to get rid of the knotweed, but then allowing that to grow back, or perhaps planting some, basically getting this back to native through here, but continuing with knotweed treatment. And then Sean actually said that he would do more planting, just because he wants it planted, so an area up in here, Jen thought we'd put in there so that he can have the permission to plant there if there's about another 300 or so square feet that he can put in there. So all told, about 900, this is 693, 1,800 square feet or so. And I think the original was about, was 1,300. So overall, this will account for about 500 square feet more than what was shown on our plan for planting. And I labeled it lawn, which wasn't clear on the first plan. So that's the changes we made. I think maybe Jen can add to it if there's any more from our meeting. I think Sean, you asked if Sean could bring the receipt for the plants in.
Yeah, just so that we have a catalog of what he actually planted. And did you talk about the area of possible future planting, Tom?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
stuff
okay,
in here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. And it
My
might
mind's just kind of buzzing right now. Okay.
I know you're so excited to get that award.
I love my work, especially after the last 2 hours. I feel special again. I really do. Thank you. I don't feel so hated. Yeah. I did ask the applicant if he wanted to put up a bunch of trees in the back to screen his back neighbor, but apparently that's a family member, and that was not the right thing to say out there. I was like, you could put some trees to screen. He's like, oh, that's family. Oops,
Yep.
sorry. So, I mean, I did say that they could add that, and that's going to be an optional planting area. We can condition it to be optional. They are going to provide us the plant list just so we make sure that it's in accordance with your special conditions, that it's no dwarf variety. It was nice to see them increase that area. We just wanted to make sure that the area in question was he did provide the photograph, and as long as that area is, that knotweed is controlled and then replanted, plus the area that he's planting, that should be
That'll
fine.
be a nice project.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while to cut back and get control of the knotweed, but once he has control of it, the best thing to do, Tom, is we'll probably condition that he planted just so that it, it doesn't have a chance to come back. It's gonna be a long battle. But other than that, it was fine.
May I make a comment about knotweed? If anybody wants to see how destructive knotweed is, I was running on the bike path the other day, and where it went around by the bus station, and now it's back to its normal, and they had paved over so you could get up there. There's knotweed just popping right up through it. It's horrible. It's terrible stuff.
Oh, it is.
It's awful. It's right up there with bamboo.
Tom, I feel kind of bad. I didn't put mine in a frame or a mat or anything.
That's all right.
The only other person that's ever given me pictures is Betsy. No, that's not necessarily true. Karen gave me one of the box turtles that's sitting at the office. I think the box turtle is going to be replaced with this one.
All right, Tom, you win.
No more questions, Mr. Chairman.
Jamie? Mary?
No questions.
Betsy? Mike?
The well shown in front, that has nothing to do with water supply.
Yeah. The well.
Well,
Well, right in front of the existing house, next to the, I guess it's the north of the.
That's the water, no. Not sure what that is, but it's not.
It's not near the septic system, that's fine, yeah. Other than that, I'm fine.
I'm all set.
Mark? Kristen?
No questions?
Courtney?
I've exceeded my question and comment quota for the night.
I move that we close this hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Motion by Betsy and a second by Mike. All those in favor, opposing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions unanimous.
Thank you.
Good night, Tom.
A man, you can take a hint.
Okay, next up is a request to amend the existing order conditions. Dean and Rachel Formella, 54 Cary Lane, Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the existing order conditions CEP 25-4085 to replace proposed lawn with mix of native shrubs, native grasses, and forbs. Additional red cedar trees, and to install hardscape improvements, including granite walkway, a boardwalk, and to replace stone stairs with granite steps. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Josh, my apologies for not getting back to you. I know you've been trying to get a hold of me, and I've just been in and out of the office. So I do want to apologize for that. I know you've made an effort to get a hold of me. And second, just before you start your presentation, this is inside that fence area for the most part? The proposed fence area? The new, okay.
The new proposed fence area this was existing, but instead of going from here to here, it's just changed and it's a little more square.
A little squared, okay. Okay, you can give me. Okay, Mr. Chairman, Josh, if you could just start your presentation with your name for the record, that would be great.
All right, my name is Josh Levesque. I'm here this evening representing John Francois Formella and Rachel Summer to request that we amend the existing order of conditions. This is my first hearing, so bear with me a little bit and provide a little guidance. We're proposing to, well, I guess a little history. Tom Bunker from BSS Design presented this in the initial project in February of 2015. And he, on the plan, which I have here, if we need to refer to, proposed essentially all of this area in the back of the house to be a fescue, a seeded fescue lawn. And so I've worked with John Francois and Rachel, and they would like to limit that turf area from approximately 6,900 square feet to about 1,900 square feet. And we're proposing to replace that turf with a mix of native vegetation, which is on this list. Did everybody get the plant list? Okay. And add some red cedars in addition to the, I can't remember how many Tom had originally proposed as mitigation. So there's that. That's the first part. We'd also like to remove the existing landscape plantings and essentially do the same thing. Plant a mix of native shrubs, red cedars, and herbaceous plants. And just for context, we're doing the same brush stroke across the whole property. So even outside of the resource area, it's red cedars, beech plum, bayberry, and all the native grasses and shrubs. We are also asking to, are proposing this granite walkway right here, which is in the B zone from the top of the coastal bank, increase of 90 square feet in that area, and another boardwalk here, which is an increase, proposed increase of 67 square feet in the B zone. And we have shown some proposed mitigation planting areas. We would also like to remove the existing two sets of stairs that are on the coastal bank and replace them with granite steps that are a little more easier to walk on, stable into that area. I'm not sure if I have covered everything or not. I think that's everything. Any questions?
Good.
Yes, Josh, the area of your sodded fescue lawn,
Right, yeah, and I'm proposing.
is that extending beyond the original limit of work?
I do not believe so. I think it's coming right up to the, it's coming right up. No, the limit of work is currently along the planted mitigation plantings, and it goes around into right here, along essentially where the fence is proposed.
No.
No?
Not where I have the proposed limit of work. Am I on the wrong plan? April 17, 2015, it's just hard, I'm just trying to, are you looking at the April 17th?
Honestly, mine is only a plan with nothing else on it.
Let me bring your plan over here. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. See, it goes out like this. So here's my limit of work right here.
Quisit Harbor. Goes way back.
Yeah. So yours
You went out
doesn't
to the
extend
north,
far.
you went to the
Go
left.
120
Well, this
plan.
is the top of the coastal bank, right
Yes.
here.
She says, he says
You're
native
at
forbs
20,
and
plant- you're at a 1 to 20, correct?
grasses.
So you're at 22 out from the edge of that
Oh, okay.
pool deck? I'm gonna go from the corner of that deck,
I didn't even see that.
22 out. No, you're good. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Are
It
these
just,
all,
I get a different visual perspective on both plans, so I
are
appreciate
these
it.
all natives?
And you're just squaring off that pole fence in that area and kind of bringing it in, I see.
These,
Correct. The way Tom had
Yeah,
proposed it.
it kind of
was
goes like that.
It was working off of the
here.
mitigation plantings. So
Yeah.
it's gonna come down here and then
natives.
connect to this,
Yeah.
this mitigation planting and go to.
Okay. And the board understands that that darker black line around those existing cherries, that's that triangular, like, little shapes, that's that proposed mitigation. Okay,
Just to clarify.
just so they
These
understand.
are the existing
Mitigation, yeah, just so they understand that.
Existing mitigation plantings.
Okay. I have no questions.
Mike,
Mr. Chairman?
Sounds like an improvement. I have no question.
Maureen?
I'm very happy to see that all the cedars. Very nice.
Kristen?
There's, I'm confused, there's one proposed set of stairs?
There are two existing sets of stairs.
But one.
In the,
Okay.
in the pamphlet, the two from the left over, the first two are the existing stairs, and the right is kind of a precedent image of what I am proposing for both sets.
For both sets?
Yes.
Okay, so I see one set on the plan, I'm just wondering where the other one is.
They're actually
if it was an
off
after
of the
the fact.
plan, they're down in this area
No,
right
that's what
here,
it's.
Okay,
on the coastal bank.
on the, down on the right here?
They're on Tom's plan.
This
On
to
Tom's
that, and
plan,
this to
they
two
are, here's the first set, and I believe the second set is down in here.
Okay, so the first set.
So they're actually not on, they're down in here off of my drawing.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a vague recollection of that.
Here's the pool, here is the mitigation plantings that are right here, and then there's the set that's right here.
Well, that I can't remember. So the coastal.
This is all the coastal bank.
Okay, all right, so it's down in here somewhere, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, I've exceeded my quotient, but I have, this is
not
for,
allowed to
this is
speak.
for Jen.
He is not allowed to
Jen,
speak.
my question to you, I'm not familiar with these
We've
grasses and
frightened poor Mr.
forbs.
Lefkow
Are
by
these
not
all
tonight.
on the, okay by you as far as
Yeah.
native,
Yes.
native
Yeah.
plantings?
Yeah.
They are.
Mhm.
Thank you. No other questions.
Thanks, Mike. Betsy?
No, I like it. It's gonna be a nice project.
Nice project. yeah.
I agree, no questions.
Jamie?
I concur.
Okay, what's your pleasure?
I move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Motion to close by
You're very
Betsy and a
patient, man.
second by Mike. Any other comments, questions from the board? Any other comments, questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions unanimous, so moved.
Jen,
Very
you
much.
Good job,
Thank
Josh.
you.
can't you wait to come back again?
Next time I'll put you on first.
Jen, do you have it?
No, just put it in, what? I just put it in front of you. I put it in the little thing, the little bucket.
All right, next up is a request to extend the existing order of conditions, Black Beach Harbor Head Association, Black Beach Hill Road, Little Neck Bars Road, Gilbert Lane, Drift Road, West Falmouth, Mass. Request for a 3-year extension. Jeff?
Come on up, Jack. To the microphone. To the microphone, Jack, and I'm not quite sure how this way is gonna go for you. Okay, we
Good evening. For the record, my name is
continued
Jack Landers-Cully. I'm a civil engineer in private practice. I was retained by BBHA some 3.5 years ago to present the plans in the subsequent issuance of the order of conditions. They are asking for a continuance.
An extension.
Or an extension
You're asking for an
of that order of
extension.
conditions. I asked for 3 years only because I believe we're permitted as a matter of right to ask for up to 3 years. And if the board decides that it's appropriate, grant it. Jen asked me earlier this week why one should be, or why the order of conditions should be extended. In particular, because of the stormwater management report hadn't been issued
And
or
because
submitted
the
to you.
And because the stormwater management system isn't been maintained in accordance with the operation and maintenance plan.
Well, that part I'm not sure about. Certainly, the report should have been issued or submitted. My notations as to what needed to be done, I consider to be routine repair. That is the raking of the swales, the fixing of the brow, the fact that it was windrowed and there's a bit of, or scarified and sloped, super elevated towards the swales. There's a little bit of windrow where the guardrails are. And to summarize, those swales, 2 laborers with a pickup truck can fix everything within 1 day. So I consider that yearly routine maintenance.
That has that maintained, Jack, has
I'm
that
sorry,
maintenance
what?
been done?
So I still am requesting an extension to the order of conditions. The one advantage is I would assume the regulation or the decision would be the same, and that we would submit you a stormwater report again, at least for 1 year or 2 years, depending on the extension. The original approval was for the report to be written in September. When thinking about it, it seems to make more sense to do it in the spring. I would request that if you do grant the extension, we modify that condition, only because after the winter, I can better assess what the condition of the swales are and what they have to do. They're actually in pretty good shape. We submitted one set of pictures that showed that the swales, the vegetation is growing well. There was one little blowout. There were 2 guardrails that had to be repaired. And when I spoke to the association president, he said they were actually damaged by town vehicles when they were going up and down that road. Nevertheless, they're going to fix them. It's actually scheduled to be fixed, and I don't know if they are repaired as we speak. I haven't been there in the last week. They would like to continue maintaining it, and so by getting an extension, I don't think there'll be any question that they can then maintain it in the same manner as was approved before. That's what they want, plain and simple.
Jen?
Hang on, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I have a question. Jack, didn't we see you like a month ago, and you asked for this extension, and we gave you a continuance to today to get the report?
Yeah, and I gave it to Jen last week.
Oh, so Jen has the
Oh,
report?
yeah, she does.
Oh.
And maybe she's commenting on those, but if my report said everything's fine and dandy, I wouldn't be telling the truth. Again, I just told you 2 minutes ago, I think 2 men with a pickup truck and rakes can do the repairs. It's just normal maintenance. That's all. They have to rake out the swales. They have to get rid of the windrows. They got to fix 2 guardrails. They got to fix 1 blowout. They got to remove a few branches, and then I think they're good to go. So, admittedly, I got the report to the.
He did imply it wasn't done.
Yeah. So.
Oh.
And I think Jen was
You see
right when
where
she
I'm
said
coming
we
from?
didn't get a
Yeah, I do.
report, so why should we take any action? So I sent that message back to the president. He said, yeah, do it. I think the bigger concern this board has is, will we continue doing it? And I told them that, they've got to put it on their calendar to let me know to do it.
Yeah, again, it's not your responsibility to remember to do it, it's their responsibility.
So, but he does know
Today's
that.
applicant responsibility night.
Good luck with that.
Oh, I have some comments about that other project that you talked about for 2 hours, because I have a history with that, too.
I have some comments about this project. Okay, here's where the staff stands with this. It took a tremendous amount of staff effort and patience and time and good behavior, Sam, to get the Blackbeast Hills Homeowners Association to the point where they came up with a road maintenance plan. You issued them an order of conditions in July of 2013. That road was immediately graded. The swales were not built, but the road was graded. Staff had to reach out to the association and let them know, they're in violation. They built the swales, I believe, in September of 13 because they needed to submit an operation plan. But they couldn't submit their maintenance plan because they hadn't built their swales yet. So they ended up building the swales, Jack, and I have all of the emails to document the back and forth between me and the association. We come up to June of 2014, that next year. They wanted to grade again. We were like, you haven't maintained the swales. They hadn't seeded the swales. They were having problems getting the swales to vegetate. This is a whole year and almost 2 gradings after you issued the original order. Yep, I know. So the point is, it's been very difficult to deal, it's been very difficult for the applicant to, the applicant has not been maintaining the swales, as I'm just going to say it. I'm sorry. We were provided a report in 2014 at the end after back and forth emails all summer long about getting the swales out, multiple staff visits again out to the site, and then in 2015, silence. The request to amend came up. We were like, you need to maintain your swales. We had property rights issues. At that time, it was brought up to them that they needed to maintain the order of conditions. That was not done. This is conversations through 2015 when you came in for the amendment. Correct, Jack? It was 2015 you came in for the amendment?
I'm not sure. It would have been the end of 2015.
Would have been the end of 2015.
2016.
Still,
Yeah.
the applicant did not submit an operation maintenance plan for 2015. You go out, they ask for an extension, you go out, and the swales are in,
It was January of 2016, I think.
they're
that
in
we asked for the
disrepair, Jack.
extension.
They haven't been maintained.
I have a motion to make, and my motion is to extend this for 1 year, give the board an opportunity to be on its best behavior, remind them that they have to remind you so that we have a report, and then a year from now, or hopefully a month before a year from now, you will be back, and then we can consider perhaps a 3-year. Well,
Sure,
perhaps a 3
that's-
year.
that's
We
reasonable.
don't want you to come back all the time, but we want the board to understand that it's a little frustrating and it's taking a lot of everybody's time, including your time.
What is the maintenance of the swales that they're not doing? Or what are they supposed to do?
They're supposed
Well,
to
I
rake
think the-
them out,
Clean
maintain
them
them,
out.
clean
Okay.
them out, and
Keep
do
the
everything.
debris out
That's
of them,
not
so they'll
being
work.
done.
That's all I want to know.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
I have a recommendation for this board. Mr. Chairman, if the board is to grant a 1-year extension, then I think the board should also request that the maintenance of those swales and another report and documentation, photographs and documentations from they have a landscaper provide. I mean, that was a professionally maintained swales. They were professionally built by a reputable company. They should
Right.
be maintained by that company or an equal company.
Well, I would like to see that report.
I would
at the
see
end
that
of-
report.
At the end of this summer.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I would suggest that if you are to grant the 1-year extension, that it be contingent upon a report being issued to this board on the maintenance of the swales, and if that report isn't received by a date certain, then you revoke the permit.
I would put the date of March 15 on that.
No.
That's 8 months, that gives them, or 10 months, that gives them 2
All right,
months.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor.
Courtney, I'm thinking
Any
in
other-
like a month.
Any other
I'm
comments?
gonna amend my motion to say we need to see evidence that you did a report. There's
The
things
report
that have
is
to be
in-
done. We need to see evidence that those things were done.
Exactly.
The trails have been maintained, the
Yeah.
fences have been
Yeah.
fixed.
You need a follow-up report and documentation that those maintains have been repaired. You need that information.
On June 30th.
June 30th, or I would
That's,
suggest
that's reasonable.
revoking the extension.
Yeah, because I think the
I'll,
landscaper
second the
needs to know
revised
what to
motion.
do.
Mhm.
I give him the report, and then he sends a letter to me and to you saying he did what he was asked to do. That's what you want.
Right, that's what we want.
With pictures.
Yeah.
Mike,
Makes sense.
Mike, did you
That
have a
makes
comment, Mike?
Um,
Patiently standing here with you.
Yeah,
Sitting here with you.
the, if you're gonna do maintenance once a year, it seems to me the fall, after the foliage.
Actually, I think it's twice a year.
It's supposed to be
Once a
twice a
year
year.
was the repair, the other, they should
So
rake
if
it
you're gonna
twice a
do
year.
something, one in the fall and then one in the, after the winter damage to clean yourself up, it makes
Right.
all the sense. So that if we're gonna require a report, that it seems to me that after that major fall cleanup is the time we
He
can
hasn't report.
report.
they haven't done the
They've
cleanup.
never
We're
done it.
saying we want a
I
report. We see
understand,
that it's
but-
clean
Yeah.
now, so it works
Right.
for the summer.
Also,
Right.
the operation and maintenance plan says that the swales shall be maintained. It's like the list thing again. If the swales aren't maintained, it doesn't mean they only can do it once a year. It doesn't mean they only should do it twice a year. The swales need to be maintained. So if the swales are, erosion enters the swales, or the swales fill in after a couple of major storms, then the association's responsibility is to make sure those swales are working properly. Not only working properly once or twice a year when they feel like cleaning them out.
And that's what the order of conditions
Says.
When they need to be cleaned out, they should be cleaned out. You
Yes.
don't have to tell us you're cleaning them out. They
So
should
I
be
don't
clean.
wanna put a once a year or twice a year, condition on this. It's the responsibility of the applicant. Anyway, that's that 1 year contingent upon the repair and maintenance of the swales by June 30th in a documented report, or again, the staff recommends revoking the extension.
That was my motion. That was
Second.
Courtney's
Oh,
Courtney
Courtney, I'm
seconded.
sorry.
Yep.
Courtney, go ahead.
Courtney?
Is it appropriate to condition this that they have to have a contract with a company who will maintain it?
I would say a reputable company. This board
I
cannot,
don't think we have any,
you cannot
no, we
tell.
can't say who's gonna do what.
Yeah, you can't
No,
direct somebody to do
I
it.
hear you. What I'm trying to do is create a situation where.
They need to be
that-
professionally maintained.
Yeah, that there's somebody, they're gonna go out when, they're gonna make a judgment there was a hurricane, so they're gonna come out and check and clean them up.
That will be up to the applicant. I know what you're saying,
To
Courtney.
that end, though,
Yeah,
Courtney,
I mean, I'm
think-
trying to think
I
of a
think we
way
should
to,
have 2
because it
dates
sounds like
certain.
where their issue is that they're decentralized and there's nobody minding the store out there.
That's the
That-
applicant's
that's part of the
responsibility.
I agree.
Not even a company's responsibility,
Mike,
that's
Mike,
the
did you have
applicant's
anything else, Mike?
responsibility.
No.
Okay. Anyone else have any other comments? Everybody understand the motion that's on the, we have a motion by Betsy and a second by Courtney. Everybody understand that, what we're voting on here?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna call for the vote then, if there's no other public comment. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jack. You skated by that one.
Okay,
You've had a delightful evening.
vote order conditions, 3, 4, 3.5.
I hate to leave you all, but I'm not on any of these.
I'm not even.
Bye, guys.
You can, here's the.
So, 3,
Hang on,
4.
Mr. Chairman, give me a minute, I'm sorry. I'm a little frazzled right now.
Yeah, you're not the only one.
I know. I'm trying to find my quorum sheets. I'm really trying to find them.
What is this? This is,
Are they in front of you guys?
I don't think, this isn't on the agenda.
Keep going.
Oh, okay.
Hang on, Mr. Chairman, I'm just trying to find my quorum sheet.
I think it's everybody.
I
have it.
Oh.
Which one are we doing?
The ones that that's.
Grand Avenue.
34.
Jamie, Mary, Russ, Mike, Courtney, Kristen.
Thank you. Hang on.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, I gotta remember this one here.
Hang on one second. One.
But you guys got out early that night and we weren't here,
What was it that said tonight was gonna be early?
Yeah, right, I
Wait a
think
minute.
that.
Mary, can you do me a favor? When was this hearing closed?
May 11th.
May 11th. Last week. Yep, okay, give me 1 second. I'm just trying to think, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh, this was,
Okay. Harborway Corporation. Oh,
This is
okay,
the
yeah, okay,
mitigation
this is the, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, this is the repair of the bulkhead. So they're putting the revetment, the sheet piling behind the existing revetment, and then they're redoing the dock and, repairing the whole dock. And then Maria Hickey will be doing the landscape plan, which is in a slightly different configuration. The original plan they gave you had a native perennial around the whole mitigation. She removed that at my request, made it more native shrub materials as it was supposed to be in the original order, because they're doing the mitigation from the original order of conditions back in like 90-something. And then the only area of perennial she has, which is acceptable to staff, is to kind of make a nice little walkway down to the dock area. Mr. Chairman, see, remember?
yeah, no, right, but I was just, was this?
And the
something
dots
else
are,
about-
the dots on the colored
Yeah.
plan are Raoul's plan, or what it was, in the 98 or 2003, whatever, the prior order of conditions, and they just reconfigured it
That's right. that's
because
right.
of the existing lawn area and
wasn't done,
the
it
existing
wasn't-
outdoor space.
Okay.
And there was a note that Maria Hickey would
Yes, there.
say that it was done because it wasn't done last time.
Yeah,
Correct.
yes, and when you, just for, Kristen, for your sake, when we write an order of conditions like that, and this board has approved this language, so we just carry it over, when this board is presented a particular landscape plan, and a applicant or a particular, let's say it's either, Maria Hickey, Blue Flax Design, Wilkinson Ecological, the board has a certain comfort level with those presentations, with the people giving those presentations. So if they present a project to you, it is written in the order of conditions that they are the sole entity that can implement that plan unless otherwise approved by this board. Because what was happening is we'd have a company that this board was very comfortable with give a big presentation about how they were going to remove invasives, how they were going to carefully use the herbicide, how they would restore it with natives. Next thing you know, the applicant is hiring Tommy pickup truck and everything is a mess out there. So that's the way we write it.
Move to adopt the order as discussed.
Second.
So we get a motion to approve.
Mary, just call me Courtney.
Approve, as discussed.
Nowhere near.
Mike, any other comments, questions from the board? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Abstentions, unanimous, so moved.
I don't even remember.
11 Ottawa Lane, this was the fireplace and patio.
Oh, this was just the small little fire pit area.
They were taking on a pot.
They did submit some information on the lighting to me. So the low voltage lighting that was submitted for the record.
It's lighting in the wall, is it?
I've seen lighting like this before. It's not glaring. I think that was a concern of the neighbors.
Yeah.
As far as the overall plan to repair the area, Mr. Chairman, you were out there with me. It is fairly straightforward. The only, I think, the greatest concern was what the effect of the lighting was and if the board's gonna allow the lighting. I think that was the biggest
Did we
thing.
get a wattage on what they were,
Yeah.
what the bulbs and all that stuff were? 'Cause I haven't
If
seen
I,
it.
if I understand it correctly, basically what it is landscape lighting, and
It is.
they have these small, low-voltage things that are, like built into the wall that aim the light down, and there's probably some lights in the stairway, so people going down, but it's not, glaring spotlights,
It's like
you know,
movie theater lighting.
like one of those highway projects you go through at
Mr.
midnight.
Chairman, it did come in, if it's not in the file, because it came in like between last week and today. I know for a fact, the information did come in. I can't remember if we placed it in the file for you.
Is it more lighting than we allow for a dock?
No, it's less.
It's less than, I mean,
No,
lighting can't
it's
be a good
much,
thing,
it's much
but
less.
We can't go there. I mean,
Right.
like, your opening pen, just stop.
No, it's less.
That's they could.
It's less.
Yeah, okay.
Because, I mean, when you're coming in a dock, you need certain lighting to get up to it. No, it's less. It's very low.
I've seen it before.
Yeah, I know what it is.
I was just curious how much it put out,
And
that's all.
Mr. Chairman, I will
'Cause
forward
I
it.
know the one neighbor had a concern.
Yeah.
I
Well,
will-
their concern was, or at least what they were saying, was that it was
Was there a
for the
plan submitted?
salamanders and frogs.
I'll forward the information
and
to all
not
of
for
you
their
if we haven't
own
already. And I don't think we did.
Aesthetic concerns.
Those things are typically like 7 or 11 watts.
I mean, if it's that,
But
if
I
it's the
would
kind
think
of light.
that if that's the wattage we're talking about, the household lights are already bothering those animals more than
Right.
these lights will.
Absolutely. I am going to agree with you. I will forward you all the lighting information, and I apologize for overlooking that. I did see it come in. I'm like, oh, look, we got lighting information. So,
Anything else?
I just had one question. I
Sure.
don't know that we went over it.
Sure.
So I don't know if it matters, but they were saying they're gonna replace the existing with pavers, but what does that mean? Is that,
So they're going from brick to currently.
Yeah,
they're
it's-
currently
it's brick now.
They're just sprucing it up.
Brick, going from brick to brick.
Brick to brick, okay, so it's not like a perfect.
they're going from brick pavers to dry laid granite pavers.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
So
not.
they're just
Aesthetic change.
removing the impervious surface that's there and replacing a different impervious surface.
Okay.
And that looks like
Which
a
is-
safety issue.
Yeah, actually, wouldn't you think granite would be a little more slick
Yeah.
than the brick? But,
I don't,
yeah,
But it
anyway.
will
why
look
they
nicer,
need to wait.
probably be new.
they also want
I
to
think
paint
that's
brick.
what they were looking at. This is the wall.
It's their house.
You put a little low voltage.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay,
Motion to
But
accept the
that's
order
what I wanna
conditions
see.
As discussed.
Second.
we have a motion to accept as discussed by Jamie, and a second by Mary. Any other comments, questions?
This is with a proviso that, did we get the lighting plan?
Yes, we got the lighting information for you.
Okay. I'll accept that.
Okay, so hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions unanimous, so moved. Okay, next up is 115 Charles River Road, Squawk
Okay, Betsy was on this one.
Sure.
Yeah, because she's the one that wanted the arborvitae's to be moved. Her and Maury. Oh, they weren't here last week? No. Okay. I was like, they're the ones who wanted the arborvitae's to stay, I'm sorry. So
Right.
this is the one where Courtney wanted the information about the deck, and they provided the information showing the deck.
Okay.
And then, should the trees along the path be removed or not removed? They were proposing them to be removed and planted with native species. Now they're proposing to take the path that's originally there, that's between the deck, so it goes path, arborvitae's, deck. They're now removing the arborvitae's, and it'll go native cedars, path, deck. So they're just switching them out. You see what I'm saying?
They're switching out.
Yes,
They're taking out arborvitae and putting in cedars?
yes, so,
And this is on a revised plan.
It's not furniture, you know?
well, you guys can say no, I'm just saying, this is what they're proposing. The original hearing, there was some question of why the existing arborvitae's be removed in area to be replanted with native species. The question was why? So it's because there's the deck, if you look at the original plan, then a big line of arborvitae, and then a kind of timber walkway that was going to be rebuilt, but the arborvitae's kind of are growing over the timber walkway. So instead, they switched the plan to one, remove the arborvitae's, but put the walkway where the arborvitae's is up against the deck, and then put the native cedars right along the property edge.
Are you okay with that?
I could go either way, Mr. Byrd. It's going to be up to the board. How's that? I'm done making any sort of decisions or comments this evening.
And they've submitted a revised plan showing
Yes,
that?
I have my plaque. I'm good. I'm going home.
They've submitted a revised?
Yes,
plan.
they have a revised plan dated 5/3/16.
So you don't have a heart attack, you're
No,
just not
I
recommending
don't
it.
have an issue, but I do know that I think Maury and Betsy, Mary, and maybe even you, Mary,
Yes.
were concerned with the removal of the arborvitae, so.
I don't really favor that kind of thing when it's not necessary. I mean, it's not furniture being moved around, but,
Courtney,
that's all I'll say.
here's,
So we have to leave it the way they originally wrote it. Leaving the arbor.
I, you know, cedars,
that's why they offered
cedars
it.
is a good replacement, you know, I just made the statement I made, because that's how treating trees like
Arborvitae's
furniture drives me
considered
crazy,
native.
but anyway.
Arborvitae's considered native,
some consider them native, yes.
huh?
Mhm.
We're, in terms of the resources, are they equivalent?
Probably the cedars are better, except that the arborvitae are there, they're big, they're established. They're providing habitat for whatever they're providing habitat for.
Well, and-
So you're,
but-
you're following, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
But this.
Well, it's not exactly that, but,
Yeah.
The applicant has the property and their desires. And if what if what they are proposing is protective of the resources, I feel I have no place telling them tree A is better than tree B.
well, it's not, right, I
So-
wasn't really looking at it that way. The way I'm looking at it is, why disturb an area and cause a lot of, you know, erosion and other issues?
It's already established.
Yeah.
It's an A zone, right?
Correct, Kristen.
In the long term, are we better off looking down the road when they put in the trees rather than what they have? Is this a short-term hurt for a long-time gain?
I don't know that the gain is particularly significant, and, you know, I'm not,
Well, I'll make a motion and then we can stop it. or move forward. I'm just saying, I move that we accept this proposal.
second.
The revised plan? The revised plan or the original one?
The original, right?
Right.
The original proposal.
The original proposal.
Which leaves the arborvitae in place.
Right.
Second.
I'll second that. Okay, I got a second already from Jamie.
Hang on, wait a minute.
Yeah, I seconded it a couple minutes ago.
Guys, hang on, 1 second. So you're saying remove the original plan, the original plan has existing arborvitae's to be removed in area
Yes.
to be replanted with native plants. The
Correct.
second plan has them being removed
But replaced.
and replaced with cedars. No, that's okay, Jamie, replaced with cedars, but the
So either way
Deck,
the arborvitae's go.
deck, pink arborvitae's, existing path. Existing plan, arborvitae's were gonna be removed and replaced with blue native plants. The revised plan shows deck, path,
Cedars.
Cedars. If you want to keep the arborvitaes, we can approve the plan and just say the arborvitaes shall remain. And that they're not going to be able to relocate the deck or
I'm
anything.
gonna stay with my, so now that I
I don't
understand what I
understand-
was proposing and everybody.
Yeah, so
everybody understands
what was your
I am,
proposal,
that-
Mike?
That the proposal to accept the applicant's second plan, that
As proposed, as revised.
as.
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
The second plan is arborvitae out, cedar in,
Correct.
Correct.
and a few other things.
Well, yeah, that you guys
Path
already.
relocation.
Yeah.
Okay. Susan's shaking her head. What's the matter?
So has there been a second?
Okay, hang on just a second.
No, I got it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Vote to adopt the order of conditions.
As proposed. Just, it's like they normally do.
As discussed.
As discussed, it's like they normally do. It'll be this plan. They're just trying to make it a little bit more difficult.
Okay, so.
Yes, we are. We're in a difficult mode today, and
Yes.
we're gonna continue.
Well, I'm gonna try
It's
to make
10
it less
o'clock, that's
difficult
why.
here.
That's what the Cedars.
We have a motion and a second by Jamie. Any other comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, no.
No.
All right, ayes, raise your hand. Everybody, aye, raise your hand. Okay, no, got it.
That's
Okay.
fine.
No, I know that.
All right.
I just, everybody's like,
Well, it kind of is confusing because
It's confusing.
the original
Maybe
plan,
the
the
wrong
revised plan,
decision,
and
but
then
it's
what
my
we could
decision.
throw at them.
Okay, and I'm looking for another motion right now.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, second.
Motion to adjourn.
2 seconds, give me 2 seconds, I'll be right back. Motion to adjourn. Adjourn.
We did.
Yeah, we're gonna
Wait a
adjourn.
minute.
Motion to adjourn is a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Aye, aye.
Why don't we all leave?